Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 85th live stream from the MisfitGamersStudios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's homebrew review, we have a Baridc subclass submitted by one of our newest followers, Pokeniner. It is their first submission, and it is the College of Pages. Very interested to see what this is. And also, just a quick fun announcement. This is a little bit of a special episode because technically, as of yesterday, officially, it is the 1-year anniversary of D&D Discussions. As of March 5th of last year, funny enough, I did not know it was on Cinco de Mayo, funny enough, or May 5th, not March 5th, but yeah, May 5th last year was the very first episode, so episode 85 is the 1-year anniversary. It's kind of crazy, but it's here, and no signs of slowing down. We're going to keep on going with this, so yeah, it just kind of so weird when I first started this, and I remember ending the year at with the 6 months and 50 episodes, and I was like, okay, this is getting kind of fun, and then suddenly it's been a year, and I'm just like, this really just does feel so part of my schedule now that I'm looking forward to continuing. So yeah, hope you guys are excited today to join us. Pokeniner, already saw you in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. I'm pretty sure you're excited too to get to your item. But yeah, that's pretty much all of the big update was just kind of the 1 year. And then yeah, we have tons of items being submitted, so we have an entire schedule out for at least the next couple weeks. So yeah, not to worry there. Homebrew review is going strong, and deeper discussions. We have plenty of things planned. We have finishing up psionics this Friday. Eventually going to be building a high point psionicist to give you guys an idea what that's going to be like. We're going to be doing some other builds as well, so that we can eventually lead into actually gaming a little bit. We have some plans for that as well. And yeah, we are so close. We are 5 followers away from affiliate, and we are at 2.8 average viewers. So we are just about there. We need 3 average viewers, and we need the 50 followers. We are almost there, guys. That's going to be fun. Hoping that we can make that by the 100th episode, because if we do, goal is to have a giveaway on the 100th episode if we're an affiliate. So look forward to that. But otherwise, those were all the big updates I had. So let me bring Kage in. What is up, my friend? Nice to have you back in the studio.
Shalom, shalom. What's happening,
He's not
my
always
friends?
the best.
Listen, I am here for it, dude. This is good, man. A year, man. A year we've been here. Now, I know a year he has been here. I got here, I think I just was looking, and it was the 4th episode that I first debuted.
As a special guest,
As a special guest. I wasn't even super consistent yet. And then I think it was closer towards when we started getting into the homebrew reviews that it started being a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember like when you officially like when I think I there was one stream that you weren't here where I had joked about you being a co-host, because you had shown up a couple times, and I was still using special guest for you, because that's originally what I was planning on doing. I mean, to be honest, I had no idea any of my friends would join me on this adventure, so I just assumed I'd be by myself. But yeah, you had come on a couple times. I remember just being I just wanted to always highlight like when I had a special guest or someone in the studio, just to kind of make sure that was highlighted in the titles. And then I think, yeah, there was one episode you were there for like 3 weeks in a row, and we were doing like, reviews of stuff that people were submitting. And this was before we officially had homebrew review.
Yes.
And then I think I just joked about how the fact that you were either, trying, like, basically like I should just start calling you like co-host or whatever, because you were showing up so much. And then, yeah, it was like a couple weeks after that is just, I think, when we finally like did the Discord and everything, like, I think that's when it kind of just officially was like, you started taking on way more responsibilities. And I was just like, okay, well, you're not just showing up anymore.
I guess you're doing stuff. Whatever, man. I mean, that's just how it happens sometimes, especially for me. You just kind of fall into it. You do
I mean, and it kind of worked. I had no intentions really of having co-hosts. I mean, I always thought, maybe, my wife Vixie would join me a little bit, but as much as she likes playing D&D, talking about it and speculating and
metagaming.
Not her biggest thing. She doesn't really care too much outside of just when she wants to sit down and game her character, which totally understandable. But it was always a weird thing to think about having somebody else here. And then I think there was actually just a couple episodes. I think you were here like 3 episodes in a row, and then I was left on my own for 2 episodes, and I realized how much I was floundering without like the live soundboard. and just without someone to fill in the gaps when I need that moment to like.
It's definitely a whole different dynamic when you're writing solo, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, and especially, I mean, most specifically in the early stages of the stream when I didn't have any followers. So I had no audience to talk to.
There wasn't a lot of chat.
It's like, Cosmic, I think, was here at the time, and Babakiss, but that was about it. And they weren't here every stream, and they weren't very talkative. So it really was just me trying to fill a lot of dead space. And I remember, the first year, the first 6 months, 2 hours sometimes just felt like so much. Like, I remember there was just times where I'm like, what am I going to talk about for 2 hours? Like, because my whole goal was always to like get a 2 hour mark for stream. I felt
right.
like an hour or less was just not worth it. Because, how are people even going to like log in and see you? And then over 2 hours, it was just like, I reserved that for when I was like on a topic I just had, so much about.
Rant worthy.
I thought like those would be the episodes where I would talk about High Point the most because I could just talk endlessly about High Point. But yeah, there were some episodes I struggled both with review as well as like deeper discussions and just trying to like fill in the gap. Because it wasn't like I was, it's not like I was short of things to say, but trying to be consistent in the speaking, in the entertainment, and in the ever-changing nature of talking. Like I was trying to be, constantly fresh and new, trying to be entertaining, but I had to just always be talking. I couldn't just think for a second to contemplate.
Yeah, that is a really hard aspect of live streaming is being able to like take the time you would normally take to process whatever it is you're processing, and it's just nope, it's all happening right now, live and in your face.
And that's exactly it. We are also excited to see how we like this Bard subclass. I'm actually getting really happy that we're getting more classes. Like I was liking the weapons and stuff, but we've kind of been on this class kick for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm really digging it. So
there are some very cool options here. And here's the deal. Anytime I find resources, I love just making it available to my players because I don't care where the resources are from.
Right.
And so like if they see these new classes and they want to try them out, like I'm super down for playtesting stuff like this.
Absolutely.
It looks so much fun.
No, yeah, and this is going to be kind of a new way that we're going to be reviewing this particular one, because normally what we'll do is we'll have the submissions come in, and then we will have them formatted. Kage will usually format them to the way that you've seen them before with Goblin Notebook, and it'll be, more of the black and white that you've seen before. But in this particular case, we've actually gotten a submission from Homebrewery, which does a lot of the formatting for you. So we are going to see how we like this, because we have talked about it offline a little bit. We've thought about potentially using Homebrewery for our own stuff, both for potentially discussing High Point publication in terms of like, aspects of, what we've talked about in terms of what I do with High Point, and maybe publicating some of my rules, or at least giving them, using the Homebrewery to make them more available to y'all if you guys want to have a resource for all of the rulings I've ever made and all of the things I've ever said about High Point. I know, a lot of it's just in my head, so it would also be nice for me to just never have to like always remember everything.
I can actually go back to the thing that I said that time.
So we've been looking at it. We are considering doing that. We've also considered we have a lot more background stuff we have to do to figure out legality reasons and fair use reasons and all of this. But we also have thought about potentially doing something akin to a homebrew review book, where we would take all of the homebrew reviews that we've done, maybe once we reach the 100 mark, and put those all into like a homebrewery kind of book that we would maybe make a couple prints of, and then have that as kind of like either a giveaway or something that you guys could buy at like if we just had a couple copies, it would be kind of interesting. But yeah, so we wanted to test this out.
That'd be a very cool idea.
I think that would be really fun. It would just really depend upon how do we get the permissions and how do we do it
if people are okay with it, I think it'd be.
As long as we had some sort of way to to just mitigate, people, not being upset if we make money off of it, by chance. But hello. Okay. You good?
All
right. It's charging, so I don't know why it just like randomly was like, I'm going to shut off for a second.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I'm really excited to review this in Homebrewery, because it'll give us somewhat of an idea of how the formatting works in the book, and just to see if we like it. I already see that there's some changes that are great for printed books.
Very much so.
Not as great for digital, in my opinion, in terms of like what we do here.
Right,
so
right.
we've already talked about that, but it's mainly just like the column breakdown. In physical books, you're used to kind of reading, by columns because not a lot of people like, swabs of just large amounts of text. So I do understand the multi-column aspect for physical books, but when it comes to like the digital aspect for what we do, it's a little bit harder to put up on screen and to follow along with. So this will be a good test. It'll be a good test.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't want to have both. Like, if we do decide to use homebrew in the future for anything, I don't also want to have everything in Goblin Notebook as a secondary just for this. So it's like, hopefully, we'll be able to find a good medium for the formatting of both things.
Facts.
But yeah, I think that was pretty much everything update-wise, so we can kind of get right into this.
All right. Bard subclass. I don't know if we've done Bard anything yet on Homebrew Review.
Have we not? We can consult the list.
Yeah.
Because you have a handy-dandy filter now.
I do indeed.
So, we have type... Let's see here. Well, we've had something Bard. Hold on. Let's see. We've had a Bard something or another. Or at least Bard is on here already. Oh, no, it is this. It is the College of Bards. Okay.
Oh.
Interesting. So, yeah, we have not had anything Bard related.
So I'm interested to see what the what the energy of this is when it comes to bards, because it's very curious how unique people go down different paths when they're building subclasses and stuff, and like how much you try to embody a certain energy or completely shift from the original, which both
or the stereotypical
exactly
might not be the normal, but it is the traditional, or in my I like using stereotypical in this particular case because when it comes to D&D classes, you see more stereotypes than you do traditions.
Right.
In my opinion, if you look at what those two terms mean,
yes,
I feel like there are more stereotypes than there are traditions. And that's what I am really curious too, because Bard is one of my favorite classes in terms of its potential. I feel like it's very underrepresented, it's underutilized, but it's also because it's been pigeonholed so much that I'm always interested in new subclasses for Bard because I want to see it thrive. I want to see it do more. Basically, I want to see it do more of like what I've tried to do with it with second edition mechanics. So
and I do think there's like so much potential. Like you think about like how many different subclasses there are for wizard, just for the different schools of magic. Like I think that's the most that I've seen, except for maybe cleric. And but when it comes to bard, I feel like it has the most potential for the most subclasses, because when you think of a bard, it's art. And art is so much.
And it's even more than that, though, because again, that I would say falls into tradition. Calling a bard an artist, not a musician, but an artist, falls into tradition, not stereotype, right? Having a bard that sings melodies is stereotypical. Having a bard that's an artist is tradition, right? That's just a good example of what we were just talking about.
Right.
But even more so with bards, and we've kind of talked about this, I've used this as a reference before, but the recent movie Dungeons and Dragons that came out.
Yes.
We all know the main character was a bard, even though they never really said it. And yes, he did carry around a musical instrument. But the vast majority of that movie, he did not sing, he did not play, he didn't write, he didn't recite poetry. The vast majority of that movie, he was just there as essentially the in-game narrator. He was there pushing the plot along, but in a way that he was just there. He wasn't the one getting kidnapped and bumbling into traps. What he was there to do was to get the people to do what they needed to do. He was there to encourage them. My finger's over here. I was realizing that it's off screen. But, he was there to encourage them. He was there to enlighten them. He was there to guide them.
Right.
Yes, there were occasions where he did the bard thing because he did I think he did carry a lyre.
And even when he did, it was more of like a joke. And it was more of like a byproduct,
right.
Not like his whole personality.
And they even called it out at one point where they were like, what's your, look at all what we've done and what have you done? He's like, I'm the guy who's not gotten you to stop. I forget what he said, but he was basically like, I'm the guy who made you all not quit. I'm the guy who got us here because I talked us to doing it. I'm the one who came up with the plans. I like having the person who's just the idea man of the group, like the leader of the group, can be a good bard. You know, one of my favorite bards was
It's really how
was the wrestler.
guy felt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
From that podcast that I listened to.
luchador.
The luchador wrestler, where
That's fire.
he had no musical talent. It wasn't about poetry. He was just this, you know, he put on the mask. And again, he in-game role-played it as when he put on the mask. That's when he got into his wrestler character. And it was almost like his own version of like role-play rage, where the mask indicated the whole new character, because he played it differently. But when the mask was off, he was like this, you know, gentle giant. He wanted his whole like character backstory was wanting to open it up an orphanage and taking care of kids and telling them stories about all of his like great wrestling histories. You know, just the gentle giant. But when the mask went on, just straight up devastating.
It's like it's all metal music in the background as soon as that happens.
And that was what I liked about it, right? And so you're right. With Bard, it has so much potential because it itself, being an artist, being someone who represents the, again, it doesn't have to be the actor, the performance of, but someone who represents a skill set. You know what I mean? That isn't...
Yes.
And again, you could say that, well, any of the, you know, like being a rogue is a skill set. And it's like, it truly is. But there's a difference between being a skill set and being an artist. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you could make the argument some thieves are artists, but, you know, I digress. Point being, there's a lot more about bards than music and poetry. And I think that's the stereotype we tend to see is they're either locked into being musicians, singers. Sometimes you get like performers, but for the most part, that just means like stage dancer.
Yeah.
Like even when you see the subclass performer, it's basically stage dancer. You get like hula hoops and, you know, other like dancing like weapons and stuff like that. Like it's not realistically anything different than a stage performer who's carrying a mic.
Right.
Or a stage performer that's carrying a tambourine, or a stage performer that's carrying a guitar. It's like you all are basically just a representation of the same thing, whether you're
another
singing,
cookie cutter
dancing.
copy. Yeah.
But when you peel back bards being an artist, right? Like, why can't a bard be a painter? Like, again, you know, I think a lot of the times people also have a stereotypical view of what a campaign is going to encounter and have. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people will say, like, well, how do you be a painter in D&D? Like, once you get into a fight, you'll be useless. And it's like, again, because you're going to ignore the, you know, other 80% of the game.
You could say a musician would be useless in a fight.
Exactly, right? And that's the thing. It's like, and I think another problem that bards have, and I think could benefit more from these subclasses, is bards don't, even with the current subclasses, they don't really have a lot of variance. Where like when you get into wizards, you brought up wizards in the different schools. You get a lot of variance just because they're different schools of magic. Whereas with the bard, like you get bardic inspiration whether you sing and I play an instrument and then that person dances. We all get bardic inspiration. So does that luchador. He gets bardic inspiration. What makes us different? Like, I understand why, you know, the singer could inspire someone. I can understand why music can inspire someone. But, like, where is the nuance in terms of what makes your artistry different than mine? Why does, you know, it's like, I know that some things have to be cookie cutter across the, you know, the classes, but I really feel like Bard doesn't get enough nuance. I don't think we divide up what an artist can be and what it can do.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm definitely excited to dive in and see what Pokeniner got in store for us.
Absolutely. And I did have one note I wanted to remember what they said. So moving into the class, here we go. So we have the Baridc College, College of Pages. We did get a very brief little snippet. This is a Bard subclass built on the idea of a Bard manipulating reality to create a thrilling story.
Interesting.
All
okay.
right.
Manipulating. See, I'm already having fun with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let us get into this, Pokeniner. I hope you are ready. Here we go. Baridc subclass, College of Pages. Let us get into it. So, the final battle for Eberron approaches. As the gnomish bard wrote her final thoughts and wishes down, the friends around her celebrate one last meal with each other. The bard recalls the twists and turns of their journey, laughing and smiling at their past mischief, as well as their heroics. The pages of their journal fill the brim with a lifetime of memories and turning the pages to possibly make a final one. I always love those little juicy
I
snippets.
like
that.
this.
That's cool. I'm really curious. Did you write that, or was that like generated by like? Is this one of those things that the book will generate for you, or homebrew will generate for you, or did you decide to like add that whole flavor yourself? And this is an expert from the narrative biography of Alini Tiklik. Oh, you wrote that. That is so great.
That's fire.
Another thing I want to note here, too, first time we've actually on stream gotten really to talk about the Eberron setting.
Yes.
Which we've had a little bit ourselves.
A very little bit, yes.
So we did dip our toes in Eberron. Unfortunately, that was when we were in 4th edition now.
Yes.
So I think that's why we don't have the greatest mindset
And
of it.
there was a little bit of a transition, or was that still Eberron technically?
I don't think so. I think that was. I don't remember.
That might have been a different.
Yeah, I think. There was. Yeah, so yeah.
2 months. That is very impressive.
Too much for the whole book, or just for this class? Because I know that you submitted like the whole home.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That book is phenomenal.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I do like how this breaks things down. Okay, so
this. Oh, so this one took 2 months. See,
nice.
It's some good development, especially with all the lore and the yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious. Do you have to like go through like do they just have like a stock photo list? Do you just like search for things that you want? Spent so much time trying to craft this perfectly. Yeah, this is looking great. I'm really curious, like, again, how much home brewery gives you or how much you have to come up with.
So I will say in home brewery, they have like some stock images and stuff like that. And they have like you can press something and it'll like generate an example of something. So it'll generate an example of like what an item would look like, or generate an example of what something else would look like. But all the information is just nonsense information. So any information you put in there is got to be yours.
Okay. And that's what Pokeniner is saying, is that these are Google images, but they do link down here to the artist.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
The artist page is linked in the name beneath the title. Yeah, that's really cool.
I was curious what that was. I actually, because I was trying to edit one of these, I tried to change the URL in there to see if the picture would change. It didn't change, and I was like, "Why didn't it change?" And it's because that's the link to the artist.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I do like that it does that though. So that's really cool. Okay, so. Around the world, stories are told through ink and incantations. The College of Pages learned how to sculpt these stories and heroic tales, guiding them into reality. A bard from this college never lacks a quill or pen, allowing them to capture new moments of storytelling as they wander through life. Lore bards often look to this college as caretakers of history, separated from the world's opinions as they put their quills to the page. Every story has a beginning as well as an end, and the Page's bard writes the in-between.
I like it.
That's dope.
This is very clean.
Every story has a beginning as well as an end, and the Page's bard writes the in-between. That's good. That's good. I like that. Okay. Setting up for, again, a really good like foundation for what to expect, right? Like this is what we talk about in terms of layered lore. It's not inundating me with stuff I don't need to care about, but if I'm wanting to play this bard, it's already giving me like that I don't want to call it like a motto, but it's like that whole like that mantra thing, right? It's like when you want to join an organization, you know, they have something that kind of like calls to you. And that's kind of what these little things, I like when they really give someone a calling, right? When you really want to be that someone who's there to hold on to history, to make sure history is preserved kind of aspect, that does put a much better prism on like how to view this subclass. So I'm liking it. I'm already liking the direction that we're headed here. All right, so subclass features. I already have one feature in mind that I was that I already had when you gave me the little excerpt in Discord. So I'm really curious to see if I see it. All right, subclass features. You can choose to follow this college's study at 3rd level. Okay, so you cannot start here.
Okay.
But I guess that makes sense for bards in 5th edition, right? Because
I think
you choose
most
a
of them get
college
their
or a subclass at 3rd level.
Yeah.
Okay. When you do, you gain access to the following features at 3rd, 6th, and 14th levels. All right. Yeah, it's so hard to constantly go back and forth from second edition to then back to fifth and just remember all the like, oh yeah,
Right.
no, that's a third level thing. You don't get to basically be what you are until later. All right. So set the scene. When you join the College of Pages at third level, your hand can influence the writing of history and what is to come. When entering initiative, you can use your reaction to expend and give a bardic inspiration die to a number of creatures up to your remaining inspirations. They can use this immediately as part of your reaction to add the roll to their initiative or hold it instead. Interesting. Okay. So I'm seeing where we're going with this already. I'm already liking where we've painted the picture, the idea of you're kind of writing history or rewriting history, right? Like the idea that you can kind of paint the fabric.
I like that you can,
So go ahead.
I was gonna say I like that you can give them the opportunity to use it for their initiative, or they can hold on to it. And I'm curious what the for something else is.
I was literally just going to say the opposite. That's actually where I'm held up right now.
Really?
Because so far, again, based off lore and everything else, because this is the very first power, I immediately was like jiving with the idea of, oh, I get it. Because as soon as I read initiative, I'm like, nope, I got it. Being able to essentially rewrite that, being able to maybe get an advantage on, surprise rounds, and then being able to bump initiative. I was getting with that, but that's where I feel like it peaked there. Once I saw that it's like you're basically getting a bardic inspiration, I liked it was dedicated. It wasn't using your normal bardic inspiration. I kind of liked that it was dedicated to getting you guys advantage in combat. But then being able to hold on to it, it kind of feels like it's just bardic inspiration.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like for me, this just feels like I was really liking the idea that you can give them up to however many bardic inspirations you have currently. I like that you could just throw that into initiative because it's like a different use for it. But holding on to it kind of just means that you gave them all a blast of bardic inspiration.
Let me make sure I'm not confused. So, is the resource that's being expended here when this happens, is it actually bardic inspiration or is it something else, but it's just up to your number of bardic inspirations?
Okay, so Pokeniner says the thought was of letting them shine in the moment or letting the player stay in the background. He says yes to your question. So what was your question? Is because it says when entering initiative, you can use your reaction to expend and give a bardic inspiration die. So you do expend an inspiration die.
Okay.
To a number of creatures up to your remaining inspirations.
Okay, so if I have...
It's essentially allowing you to spend all of your bardic inspirations up to all of them at once instead of one at a time.
Okay.
That's what I read it. And Pokeniner says most bards gain an additional way to expend their bardic inspiration. This is sort of a bardic dump. It's meant to be a bardic dump.
Okay.
So in that respect,
okay,
I see where you're going with it, but it takes the flexibility of it late. It takes away the flexibility of it late. Okay. So setting the scene in that context, I don't disagree with it because we're just talking about basically it is, I have 3 bardic die. I'm giving them all out instead of being able to do it one at a time. Like, hey, you're about to do this such and such thing. I'm going to give you a bardic inspiration. Mm-hmm. And before you do that, you're basically saying battle starts. Boom. I'm setting the scene. Everybody, you get it. But he's adding the ability for them to either immediately use it for initiative or use it as a bardic inspiration for the rest of combat. So with that being said, I don't dislike it. I think my initial knee-jerk reaction was I thought this was you use one bardic inspiration, like you use one of your bardic die, not all of them, and it gets to affect all of your teammates just for initiative. Then when I heard it was also to give them all bardic inspiration, it's like, well, then you're basically getting mass, but that's the whole point. It's a dump. It's all of your bardic. I thought it was one bardic die to affect your entire team's initiative.
That would be a cool idea, though.
And if it had ended there, right? If set the scene was you can use one bardic die to affect all allies' initiative one time, that would be cool. I think that sounds pretty dope. But that does not mean that that's better than this.
I do like this.
My misinterpretation.
Yes.
So again, I like set the scene. I like the idea that it's a bardic dump. That was my misinterpretation. But as an alternative for you, it could also just be a single bardic die for the team, but it's only used for initiative. Because you see, what you're doing is you're giving him, you give one die, but you get to use it for, up to 5 people, right? But the idea is you only get one item that you're affecting, which is their initiative. So I could see that as an alternative, but I like the bardic dump a little better because set the scene, right? You're basically saying for the rest of combat, you all have the choice to alter one of your roles.
And I really like that naming. Like, that naming feels so choice.
Because you are setting the scene. You're basically being like, hey, who needs to go sooner, go sooner. The other of you, lay in wait for your moment. That is good. I don't think
and it's almost like an instruction, like you set the scene. Like,
exactly. And thinking of it my way would just deserve a better name. Setting the scene with the idea of like maybe, I don't think setting the scene would work if it was just a single bardic die for the whole team's initiative. It would have to be a different name. You're right. Setting the scene makes sense when you're trying to basically from the starting point, you are affecting the rest of combat.
Yeah.
I'd like that. Whoa, chat's blowing up. Okay, so no worries. I did originally do as you said originally, but I've learned so much in the games that the Bardic lack a good use of utilization of their Bardics in some games. That's absolutely true. That's why I'm saying that the Bardic dump is like realistically and objectively better than my idea. I was just misunderstanding that it was one versus all, but you're right. There isn't really a good, I like I said, like my example before, whether you're a singer, a dancer, a musician player, a poet, or a wrestler, we all give bardic inspiration. What makes us fundamentally different? Other than we're popular people who are celebrities and people like it when we give them a thumbs, like, you know what I mean? Like this is different. This isn't bardic inspiration. This is somebody taking command of the battlefield. Now, I will say that is pretty OP in a sense from a third level perspective, but you are dumping the rest of it for one combat.
No,
because because Bardic die, you don't get Bardic die back until a long rest. So if this is your first combat of the day and you do this,
you might be done.
When it comes to inspiration,
you're
done. So, and again, what Pokeniner is saying is not only is this basically giving you a one and done kind of big kapow at an early level, but realistically, it's not doing much. You can't add this to damage. You can only use it in so many situations, right? So it's not overtly bad. It's only the amount of die you can have. So they still only get a certain amount of bardic points. So realistically, it feels OP, but you are also shooting yourself in the foot if you are in a campaign that bardic inspiration would be better trickled out. But if you aren't, who fucking cares? Dump it all because it's not going to matter. You know what I mean? Like, it really is going to be dependent on the campaign that you use. But I could see this, like how many times have you wanted to use bardic inspiration, but it just feels like it's not enough? This feels like, to start the battle, this feels like enough. Like, this feels like
you're going to do some stuff and it's going to be there when you need it.
And I do like the limitation of when entering initiative. So if you aren't using this right out the gate, it's going to be trickle feed.
100%.
It's always going to be trickle feed unless it's 100%. Right out the gate. I don't disagree with it. I don't think it's bad. It's one of those things where at first glance you could be like, really? Like, but then again, if you break it down, what is it really going to do for the team? Like, realistically, even if you have 6 people, but you only get to do it a number of times for your remaining inspirations, right? So
yeah, you're only able to do what you'd be able to do anyways,
just in a shorter amount of time.
You're just basically using a stupid amount of action economy when you know nothing about the battle.
Exactly, and again, you're giving up the opportunity to decide when it works for the players to decide when it works, right? Instead of you having to interrupt or use and again, it uses a reaction, so that's fantastic, because especially if you can like throw in like a spell for your primary action and then throw this in as well. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting aspects to this. So I think it's good. I think for making a bard shine early on, because that's another problem that bards really have. They do not shine until like 5th or 6th level. So this really is going to make this bard really kind of a cornerstone to every combat, whether or not they trickle feed or come out the gate with it. That's going to make them actually want to be in combat, or you want them in the
one of them a part of their
party. All right. So let's see. So dropping once, you often still had stuff behind that never got used throughout the story. You can do up to those, so you can choose how many to give, and that's what I like. It's not everything. It's not a
You don't have to use everything, yeah.
But you use as many as necessary for who you want. And again, this also, doing that also portrays to the idea that if you have what we've talked about, where you have the opportunity for the party in-game, out-of-game, to have a conversation before an encounter. Like, they know an encounter's coming.
Yes.
Imagine they've been like, hey, guys, I'm going to do this, and if you can go after me, like, if you get initiative after me, it'll be perfect because I need to go first to do this, then you need to do that. So if the bard walks in and goes, hey, everyone has the opportunity to bump their initiative, everyone could be in the right place at the right time, and everybody can get their roll off proper. So though, this really does make the team want to work more together and make that plan ahead of time, because then you know exactly who should get that bump. I like that. So you can dump it, you can also plan the story, which I like, and then save the twists for later. Yeah. So setting the scene, it works. I like it. There is alternatives that could be done, but I really do think that that's a nice way to make this one stand out right out the gate.
Very much so.
And, again, a lot of them get something to do with their bardic inspiration, but nothing really stands out to me like this in other bard subclasses of something that is like a wow factor.
Right. Okay. I very much agree.
It's almost like this, like I'm trying to think of like what would be even like the most equivalent. And this would have to be something like a custom, like performer, like almost like a rock star class where you could do like a power slide, or like you do a power rift.
Oh, right.
And then you that would give everyone bardic inspiration. It's almost like that's what this is like wanting to be, but it's almost better just because, again, instead of it being a big display, right? It's not like the bard's doing something that's boosting everybody's like, adrenaline and everyone's getting like a thing. It's literally the bard like deciding how history works, right? Like again, the idea that they're writing history, but you can't say what everything happens. Like, you have to be proper, but you can fudge numbers. Maybe that 10
100%.
accidentally looks like a 9. Like, my bad. I wrote my numbers a little wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and you slayed how many dragons? Yeah, I totally slayed 20. Did I accidentally add another 0 into the number of dragons I killed? Who cares?
My bad. Oh,
whatever,
how much?
it's fine.
Like, oh my god, can you imagine playing this character and being like, all right, everybody gets 500 XP, 5,000 XP, everyone? No, I said 500. Yep, 5,000.
Yep.
Do you know what class I am? 5,000 XP.
Listen. I can only add 1 digit. It's fine.
Remember, I gave everyone bardic inspiration, so they can all do it too.
Yep, just 1 digit, you guys.
Oh man! All right, cool. So set the scene. Fantastic. Already liking it.
Welcome in, Hisbor.
What up, Hisbor? How you doing? You did not miss much. We just started. We got through the first the first power here, or the first feature, I should say. So we are on to feature number 2, writing prowess. All right, so. Also at 3rd level, you gain the ability to look into others' motives and to write the stories behind those motives. Oh, I'm feeling a little psionicist work here. Okay.
Interesting.
You learn the message cantrip, which doesn't count against the number of bard cantrips you know.
I like
Fantastic use of that, by the way. I always am appreciative of adding things that are beyond the standard.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome. So you also gain the proficiency in calligrapher's supplies and can use them as a spellcasting focus. Fuck, it's brilliant. I like it. That already immediately plays into everything.
That's very cool idea.
Yeah, no. And that also, that's such a good way, because how many times have like toolkits and things like that just felt so useless outside of it says I need to have one
I really wanted to make healers kits more valuable, and I'm really trying to in my games.
That's what I do. I make it more, just like with everything in High Point, it does what it does by the book. Like, it does what it does functionally, but I also allow people to expand based off of the narrative, right? If you have a healer's kit and you say, can I do XYZ? We're going to explore, should a healer's kit be able to do that? Just because the book doesn't mention it doesn't mean that, that's where it ends, right? But I really like the expansion of that, because, the calligrapher set, I've known it, I've seen it, I don't know anybody who's really ever used it outside of when the DM specifically wrote it into the campaign that would be a solution to a problem. You know what I mean? Like, because there are DMs who will do that, make sure everyone has like a purpose. But outside of it being kind of forced, this really makes it feel much more a part of the class, right? Much more of a reason why you would have it.
That's so cool. And I like in my mind when I was first listening to the description, I was just imagining somebody using like a magic quill and just like writing in the air and having all kinds of like magic symbols coming up out of nowhere. But this is so cool.
What did you just say? You imagine people writing in the air. Bro, this next part's gonna blow your fucking mind now.
All right, let's go.
When using the calligrapher's supplies as a spellcasting focus, you can replace any vocal component required with a somatic one. Literally what you just said. You literally just draw it instead of say it. Bruh, that is such a good change.
Okay, hold on.
That's powerful
here's
as fuck, by the way.
I need to clarify. Level. I just need a teeny bit of clarification. So what we're saying is I can replace verbal components with somatic. Does that mean if I have a spell with both verbal and somatic, now it only has somatic? Or does that mean if a spell has verbal and not somatic already, you can change it. Like, because the second one would make sense, because with the first one, you have to do whatever somatic components you were going to do, plus the verbal somatic.
Keep reading. So his answer is no, but keep reading. Okay. So we'll get there. Perfect. Pokeniner says, funny note for the writing prowess casting bonus, you can now write Vicious Mockery and even cooler in flavor, Wish. Imagine writing a Vicious Mockery insult on an enemy's weapon or rewriting reality to Wish to prevent a calamity.
That's some shit.
So
that's some cool shit.
It's really interesting because this is actually speaking to me on a very different level, because this is the first time I've ever seen someone get close to basically messing with metatext in a very long time. And I haven't heard metatext even be mentioned in D&D since, I think, 3rd edition. I don't even think 3.5 mentions metatext. I think it was once mentioned in 3rd, but it's primarily an older school concept. And this is basically a subclass of manipulating the metatext. Like, this is like low key what this is
like damn
into.
Near.
And that's the thing, is like it's speaking to me because I basically, like, this is speaking to me because I have aspects like this in High Point, but it's from the usage of the metatext, not like a subclass.
Right.
So this is kind of cool. Like, I'm digging this because it does have, there is merit here. There is historical D&D merit to this idea. Like, this isn't one of those things that just sounds cool, but it also sounds like really out there. Like, again, I still need to keep reading to finish writing prowess, but already that does sound pretty OP. Being able to change like components and everything, but it goes in with the lore, and there is merit to that idea. So I'm like, I'm not upset about it. I'm gonna finish, but I can already say, at least right now with writing prowess, I'm already feeling like it should have teetered on 4th or 5th level, but I'm not done reading yet. So we're going to finish that. For the semantical and verbal component aspect, that's just a bit further. Okay, so we will get to that a little bit further. But yeah, so far, I don't know, like, being able to swap out a whole aspect goes right in line with the lore. 3rd level feels a little bit soon. All right, but moving on. Okay, so you must use a color size where you can replace a verbal component required with a somatic one. You must still provide a verbal component if a somatic one is already required. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
got it.
So that was what they were doing there. College of Pages Bard also receives a magical book when joining this subclass. The book is enchanted with a magic related to your message cantrip. Using the message cantrip, you can write on the separate pages remotely, so long as the pages are within 1 mile of you. You can have a number of pages removed from the book equal to your proficiency bonus. So that's super beneficial, because that means that you can remove pages from your book, keep them with you, but keep your book separate. So you can save yourself the hassle of losing your book. You can always keep it handy. And this can also work, like, in my opinion, this would be like a role play aspect, because let's say you wanted to go somewhere that's like, has like a special spell and they're uptight about people bringing in anything. So you leave your book behind, you walk in there, and then you can write on it remotely. So you're like, oh, I don't have my booklet, so I'm not rewriting anything.
Interesting. So let me see if I understand what that means. So I have my book, and if I stick my book like in a chest in my room, I can be somewhere else and I can
Up to
write
a
on
mile
it
away.
as long as it's up to a mile away from me, right?
Yes.
Additionally, I can take any number of pages up to my proficiency modifier and remove them from my book. So I could theoretically have my book on me and like 5 pages just scattered around, and I could write on all of those 5 pages.
As far as I'm understanding, yes. The
Now-
idea, as far as I read this, the concept, like the only reason why I would imagine why you have it in here, you can have a number of pages removed from the book equal to your proficiency bonus, is removed but still attached, like removed but still part of the book. That's how I read that, because why else would that matter? Of course, I could tear pages out of the book, unless it's saying that
They're still
that it's magically bound or something. But I imagine that means that they can be separate but still part of the book. You can write on those pages even at a distance, yes. So they're separate but part. So
like-
you can have your most powerful spells separated, or you can have specialty notes.
But it looks like this is attached specifically to the message cantrip. So it's almost like I could give these pages to my party members and I could just write messages to them.
Yeah, I was just I was just gonna say, like, you can have like that posted somewhere, so like you can just tell someone, hey, they're here, or hey, look out. Like, yes, like being able to have them anywhere with the message cantrip specifically allows you to secretly write on them, secretly send them to people. And I'm pretty sure that's Pokeniner's intent, is what they wanted to do, was be able to basically give one-way communication through the team.
Got you.
That's why I would add that in there. That would be my number one usage of that for the party. But I could think of other
creative ways.
Yeah, different roleplay aspects of why that would be useful. But still, that being able to just have notes with people would be awesome.
Okay, that's kind of crazy. Bet.
Okay, so and then continuing a little bit more, at higher bardic levels, the range of your writing increases. At 8th level, you can write on this page that is anywhere on the same plane of existence, and at 14th, your writing can reach across planes of existence.
Hey?
I would say personally, I mean, because I don't know how often these things tend to go. I mean, okay, so this one doesn't go up to 20th level. In terms of powers.
The subclasses don't always have a 20th level feature. Usually that's the main class.
Right. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I almost want to see this change. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know if I'd want to go straight from a mile to the entire plane. I don't know if there's other. I mean, it doesn't mention any other upgrades.
If there's an intermediary.
But the idea of going from 1 mile and then at 8th level going straight to all planes of existence, or the same plane of existence, it's almost like I'd like to see that mile go up like by level.
What are the different steps again?
It's
what levels?
1 mile at 3rd level, plane of existence on 8th level, any plane of existence 14th level.
So yeah, I would say that it's because those aren't at specific bard level ups, like because the 8th level is just kind of smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
You could add like an additional piece in there and say, instead of an 8th level, at 6th level something smaller happens, and then after that at 10th level
that's
something
what I was
slightly
thinking, is like just going with the idea of like going from 1 mile to maybe like 10 miles, then at level 10 being able to plane of existence, then because the cross planes of existence is definitely, in my opinion, 15th or higher.
Yeah,
like it just kind of a natural 15th. I mean, 14th isn't, like, it's kind of more pedantic, but it just feels like that should be more of like the finale, the end game.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind it as early as 15th, but I feel like just going from 1 mile to anywhere on this plane, it just feels like a very big, I don't want to say arbitrary jump, but it just feels like, why even start with the 1 mile? Like, what is if you're already going to go straight
I see what you're saying.
Existence, what is the 1 mile really capping you at? Like, at that point, it should be 100 feet, then 1 mile, then plane of existence. Like, because 1 mile is already a lot. Like, narratively speaking, if you're, if it's only a couple levels until the entire plane of existence, is 1 mile even really going to be a challenge? And at that point, what's the purpose, right? I always try to look at, when I balance things, not just not just in terms
what
of
challenge am I imposing by putting this here?
Yeah, what problem does it solve, or what problem does it create that they have to solve?
I totally get that.
And again, 1 mile feels pretty generous to start out with, but if you're going to run the campaign around a mile being very difficult, you're only making that difficult until level 8, and then that difficulty just
disappears. Yeah.
And again, because this isn't for a specific campaign in a specific setting, we do have to look at it from the point of view of from other DMs out there who are trying to use this. You have to incorporate that in a 4-level period or a 5-level period, from level 3 to level 8. That's going to be their new distance level. So if you're incorporating the challenge of this, you have to take that into account. So to me, it just seems like it would be nice to see this either increase more gradually or start out with a much more severe penalty in the beginning before it immediately gets that far.
I do think perhaps starting a little bit smaller, because I do think making it a little bit smaller would give the player a little bit more challenge to work with. Be like, hey, all right, I know that they're going to have to be in the castle during this thing, and I have to be at least this close to the castle in order to be able to write them a message,
100 feet
because I can't get in there.
So 100 feet would require you to be maybe on the castle wall, like scaling a wall, or in
on the grounds or something like that.
Whereas a mile, you could be at the front gate talking with the guard and never be let in, right? That's the thing is with a mile, realistically, it's just so generous. I feel 100 feet would get early on, especially 3rd level to 5th level, it would get them practicing how to use notes, how to use the note system and kind of thing. And then once you get bigger, then it becomes more integrated as part of the party cohesion. That's why the mile, and then the whole plane of existence, so the party can split up or be captured. You know what I mean? It feels like those are the things that would happen later game anyway. So it's almost like you'd want to trickle them into the idea of how to use this before it just immediately becomes you have one way to
be honest, as a player, when you have a class feature, especially your 3rd level class feature, you want to use it.
Yeah.
You wanna get used to it. You want to feel like you're feeling out your character, how you're gonna play them, how you're gonna do all the things, and this is the time where it's like, all right, how am I gonna make this useful? And it's like you're gonna plan, you're gonna strategize, you're gonna see all the opportunities there are for it. So.
Because I will say this too, not just from a DM point of view, right? Let's look at this from as a player. If I'm looking at this as a player, even because as a DM, I've got I look at this as I have to plan a lot to make this a challenge, right? To make it useful but not overly easy to use.
Yeah.
But as a player, when you say that I get this as a mile, based on my experience and everything, in terms of the gameplays and the campaigns I've been in. As a player, that mile, I don't feel limited. As a player, you tell me I have up to a mile to talk to my buddies, you don't split the party. You know what I mean? Unless someone gets kidnapped, for me as a player, I feel like a mile is basically unlimited. You know what I mean? And then a couple levels later, it is in effect unlimited. That's where it comes down to that's where it's going to come down more to the DM, because as a player, I just don't feel if you tell me 100 feet, I'm going to think more about when it's useful, right? I'm going to think about a little bit more about how and when I want to use it. But if it's a mile, I'm just going to hand a piece of paper to all of my buddies and go,
right,
I'll talk to you.
So, and I think that I'll say once that mile restriction comes off, I will say that I do think it opens it up to a different type of use of this, where it's hey, I'm not just giving this to my buddies, I can give this to this one NPC I know. Yes. I can give this to this one guy messenger over here, and I can say, hey, go deliver this to X, Y, and Z person in whatever place, I mean,
imagine meeting a high-level wizard that can cast a remote teleport spell, and you're like, hey, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to prepay you. If I write on this, I need you to cast that spell and bring me here, right? There's so many ways that you could utilize that. I mean, hell, you could, just imagine.
And that's what opens up at level 8.
Yeah.
Right? Once you have that mile restriction just taken off. Now it's no longer just me hanging. And so maybe that's what it is. I mean, at early levels, just use it here. And then once you are at level 8, then you can start.
And maybe that's it too. Maybe it is more about the mile restriction is mainly just to say it is
just for your buddies.
And yeah, it's not meant to be a challenge. It's just meant to be used on your team. And then later down the road, you can open it up to. And if that's the approach, it's sound logic. There's nothing wrong with that logic. I just feel like even if you just added a little bit of,
It could add that other layer, and I think that's.
I don't think
I do agree
I don't
with
think
that.
it's wrong for not having it. It's just, again, as a person, as a player, within a mile, unless it's from the context of it's only there to just basically say it's just for your team at first, and then it's for the greater world at large.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the context, then I fully accept it as is. Like, there is no reason to argue because that makes perfect sense. And it doesn't need to be any more complicated, because we've also talked about that. You could easily make all of this more complicated, and you don't want to make,
Yes.
a note for every single level up. So, take that for what you will, right? I would like to see it be a more of a challenge. I would like to see the players be more challenged at first until they, earn it, the ability to do it. But if it's not meant to be a challenge and it's meant to just be a boon to the team, then you don't need the challenge, and the 1 mile works. So
Right.
I would say leave my review at that. Is if you want it to be a challenge, lower it at earlier stages. If it's not meant to be a challenge and it's only meant to be a boon, it's fine as is.
Groovy. Couple comments on it.
Let's see. Never got much comment on it. Okay, so let's see. So that makes sense. Distance was always the weird thing of the feature. Never got much comment on it. Yeah. Well, and again, because it just really depends on the creativity of the user and the DM who has a world and whether or not it can be used, right? Like, if you're running campaigns that are dungeon delves and you never split the party and they're never within outside of earshot, and that's the DM running this campaign, then the person's never going to get to use this realistically until an NPC can be contacted somehow. But if you have a DM who's cognizant that this is useful to the party, you can work in opportunities to allow the party to benefit from this, right? Like, hey, let's split up here. Hey, let me tell you this, right? Like, there's definitely a lot more, regarding on the DM with this too. So
And
I don't think players would really think, until they see the situation, I don't think many players would comment on this in terms of like what they think distance should be. Just because, again, I always look at it from the player point of view of, do I feel restricted? Do I feel encouraged? Or
I feel challenged.
Or do I feel challenged? Those are really, like, when I try to look at something from a player point of view, those are the things I look for. Because if I'm not being challenged, if I'm not being encouraged to do something, and if I'm not being restricted, then I start to question what is it for? If it's not going to do one of those things, then is it just to make me look cooler? And then is it necessary? You know what I mean? Like, those are just the ways that I approach it. So again, both the way that you have it and the suggestion that I have, I think are both valid. I really think it just comes down to intent. That's the 100%. It's not about who's right or wrong at this point. It's intent. If you intended this to just be a boon, just be something that is beneficial for the party, it's perfect as is. If you wanted it to be somewhat of a challenge and somewhat of a feature that the player would have to work at, my only advice would just be lower it to like 100 feet, then at level 5, a mile, then at level 8, the plane, and then it's fine as is, right? Just make it those first couple gaming sessions slightly more of a challenge. That's
For
really
sure.
all it would need, if that's the intent. But I can't stress that enough. It comes down to the
What's-
intent of
yes.
what you wanted this to mean. But because again, I think I'm harping on that is because normally we give advice when things are unbalanced. This isn't imbalanced. Again, it's all about context. So that's why I'm harping so much on the
I feel
fact
that.
of, if it was the intent, you're fine. If you wanted it to be challenged, it's not balanced for a challenge. But yeah, so otherwise, it's still, though, I will say this, though, it is still falling right in line with what you've written for this bard, though. And that's the one thing I can't get over, is not just like set the scene, writing prowess, not just the names, but what you're doing with this bard is just it's literally step by step, one thing after another. It is all in line with the build and what I expect, right? I'm not feeling like this is, oh, it's a writer, and so why am I,
Right, doing all this
over
weird
here?
stuff over here.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm a writer, but I'm drinking ink. Why am I understand that I'm a writer, but I mean, I'm not like crazy.
Instead of breathing fire, you breathe ink.
Or
from your-
like you're a writer, but you make potions out of ink. And, it's like, those would be kind of weird, right? This is all about the fact that you write with the manipulation of reality, and it's still all falling right in line with that. So it's becoming a really clear picture of what this character is and what the subclass is, which again, I really appreciate, because there are so many subclasses out there that just seem to be trying to either do too much of everything, or they're being so niche they don't do anything at all.
Right.
Because they're only focused on that like one thing they can do, and then everything else was like, well, what else do you want?
That's fair.
All right, next class feature, plot twist. At level 6, you've learned to shift and twist reality to affect the hearts of those who communicate with you. You can use an action to enhance a creature that you can see within 30 feet. They make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. You can also choose to expand and roll a bardic inspiration die when using this feature. If you do, the creature must subtract the roll of the bardic die from its wisdom saving throw. Fucking thank you! Finally! I am just so... cannot count how many times I have seen situations where bardic inspiration should be able to really be used negatively, and everyone just goes, but that's what we have Vicious Mockery for. Fuck it, no. Bardic inspiration is exactly that. It doesn't have to be positively inspiring.
That is very true.
Is fucking beautiful that you can, and again, you're not giving it to someone to use, you are using it yourself. Like, again, like, I get that Vicious Mockery is an attack, but bardic inspiration, I feel like, is like one of those spells that's like a reversible spell. It doesn't necessarily have to always mean that you are elevating someone. You can try to basically like confuse someone or distract someone with it, right? Like you're not... Vicious Mockery is there for damage, but bardic inspiration should be used to make things harder, right? Like absolutely think that is a fantastic way to use this. And especially because, again, you're not saying that you can use bardic inspiration whenever you want to do something negative, but being able to add this to increase a negative, that is so beautiful. I love that. And again, plot twist goes right in line with the name. Absolutely. Bardic inspiration and plot twist, perfect combo right there.
That's fire.
Let's see. So on a failure, they suffer from one of two magical effects affecting their attitude towards you of your choice. You must concentrate on this effect similar to if you were concentrating on a spell and that has a duration of 1 minute or until your concentration ends. Okay, so you can do this feat, but it's similar to casting a spell because it's like a wisdom. You have your wisdom or your spell save DC. You can use bardic inspiration to make their saving throw less, and you get to choose one of two. On fail, you get to choose one of two effects, which you have to maintain concentration on up to 1 minute or until concentration ends.
Okay.
So it acts as a 1 minute concentration spell.
Got it.
For the purposes of mechanics. I like that. I really, really like that already because I've seen a lot of bard builds and a lot of bard subclasses who try to do the whole, like, you get, benefits and you get charms, but it's kind of like a one-time thing. You just get it or you roll for it and you get it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of concentration because if you were, if you're a charismatic person and you hone in on what that person needs to, like, what you need to get into that person's, like, head, you have to maintain that manipulation. You don't just get in their head and then they just always follow you. You have to always know how to talk to them, right? So adding concentration to this and treating it like a concentration
I do think that's
spell
a very, very clever mechanic.
Perspective in there that if you're trying to do this, you are literally trying to maintain that contact and maintain that focus. I like that. All right, so one of two choices. They become frightened. The frightened creature drops whatever it's holding and must make a dash action to move away from you by the safest available route on each of its turns, unless there is nowhere to move. If the creature ends its turn in a location where it doesn't have line of sight to you, the creature can make another wisdom saving throw. On a successful save, they are no longer frightened. It also fails if it can't see you or if it's immune to being frightened. The other option is they become charmed. The charmed creature is friendly to you. If you were another creature friendly to you, do anything harmful to it, the effect ends. When the effect ends, the creature knows it was charmed by you. It also fails if the creature can't hear you or if it's immune to being charmed. And you can use this effect any number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Interesting. So basically, you get a feat that acts as either the frightened or the charmed spell.
Okay. So you can focus on them being frightened of you, and you can focus on them being charmed by you.
One or the other, yeah.
And it can end. The charming can end if your friends become hostile to them.
Which is normal. That's the standard.
So that might be a lightweight out of combat or to prevent or stop combat. But the frightened one, I think, and this is where I struggle. Again, this is 6th level, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I need to figure out like what those spells are.
So the
right
fact that this is 6th level makes me feel a lot better because there's an incredibly powerful thing in here that I have yet to see, but I think it's so cool that it's done here, where it says they drop whatever they're holding.
Yeah.
That's powerful, right? Imagine you are doing this right in front of a really powerful enemy that has some magical weapon, and you cause them to drop it, and now you can pick that sucker up. Or at the very least, they don't have it anymore.
Because you keep in mind, typical frightened condition, they have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while the source of fear is within line of sight, and they can't willingly move closer. This one, they drop items and run.
It's almost like Turn Undead for the clerics.
Yeah, it's big. That's big.
That's
I will
powerful.
say that's big.
I would say with how big that is, because I do think that's fair, I think the other side should do a little more.
You mean more
the charm side, yes. Now, again, this is 6th level.
So here we go, because this is with Charmed. Charmed creature can't attack the charmer or target the charmer in any harmful magical abilities. The charmer has advantage on any ability check to interact socially with the creature. So yeah. So in this particular one, basically it's still using the same feature. Let's see here.
I would also be curious if there's any way for you to know if they're immune to being charmed or frightened before you use this.
I don't think so. I mean, it would be like normal, right? Like I would assume like
you'd have to find out the old-fashioned way.
And again, I'm never a fan of basically giving people that much power, because then it's like if you can just always know what the best option is, but why not metagame? Why not just pull the monster manual out and just be like, nope, it's immune to fire. You know what I mean? Like the idea kind of ruins the aspect of you always knowing. So let's see. This is what I wanted to look at. So charm person spell. So duration lasts for an hour. So this is a 1st level spell. Duration lasts for an hour. Action time of an action. It is not concentration. So these are differences. So when you charm someone, make a wisdom saving throw. If fail saves, they are charmed, and they get what we already mentioned until the spell ends. The charmed creature is friendly as an acquaintance, and they know that they were charmed by you. So basically, this is a lower level version of the charm. It's a 1 minute, not 1 hour, and it's concentration instead of just automatic. So there's that. And then the same aspect of...
there's technically a spell called Fear, but it's a much higher level spell.
Yeah.
I don't think there's...
Fear is an AoE fear spell, yeah.
Yeah, that's the other aspect of that.
This is the fear spell, but so it's fear, but single target, and it is limited to just the one. Yeah, essentially the one use, right? Because you get to. So what's interesting is...
So wait a second. If this is just straight up...
What I'm actually curious about, because you said, but this limits it... Yeah, so this limits it to one person, but you can use this... So here's what we're talking about: action economy and a little bit of balancing. Yes, you have limited these a bit. You know, it is basically the charm person spell and the fear spell on only one target. And it is, you've limited it to 1 minute, and you've limited it to concentration. But these are basically now cantrips, because this is a feat that as an action you can do this.
I will say they are limited, just like spells are. So you can only do this a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier.
Is that what it says here?
At the very bottom, right there, that last line.
Oh, okay. You can use this effect equal to the number of your pursuit bonus, and you gain all exceeded. Oh, okay.
So you got 3 of these a day out the gate.
Right.
Well, actually, at 6th level, what's your proficiency? You might be 4 by then.
Yeah. They are. That is basically adding
another spell,
potential spells to your list. So we just got to keep that in mind.
And they're not considered spells, so they are not restricted to. You can only cast 1 spell in a turn. So if you can get one off as a bonus action, you can still use this as an action
because it's not a spell.
Because it's not a spell.
Yes, that is true. So So yeah, it's with that being in mind, with that right there in mind, I don't mind the charmed part, especially like the charmed part makes perfect sense with the concentration, the 1 minute. I get it. Like role play, combat wise, I'm down for the charmed part. Dropping a weapon and force running is just a lot to say that I have that 3 times. Like again, without that being a spell, I could like you said, BBEG, run away, drop your weapon, run away, drop your weapon. In 3 rounds, I can make the most 3 powerful enemies on the field drop
Now,
and back away from me.
I will say, yes, you can hurt their saving throw, but they do still technically have a saving
and it
throw.
It could fail for sure.
But
But also,
is,
that's 3 times in combat that if it fails the first time, I have 2 more times. I could basically rapid
if you
fire
really
that.
wanted to do it to one person, you got 3 tries to do it.
And so, I don't know. And like you said, like there really isn't anything that drops it
let me
and
ask
then
you
makes
this.
them run.
I still don't know. Because even the fear spell doesn't make them drop their weapon.
Exactly, right?
But what if they succeeded on it, you can't cast it again on them in the same day? Like, how would that affect how powerful? Because yes, you could still do it as much, and yes, it's still the same thing, but I can't spam it on one person. Fear
does drop it.
Does it? Well, frighten the spirit must take the dash action. Oh, ooh, yes. Because it's separate in my version. It separates it by paragraph, but it says it right there. After you make the wisdom saving throw, they drop whatever they're holding. For the duration. That's different.
Yeah.
Read his again, because is his they just drop it and run away?
Yeah, the frightened creature drops whatever it's holding and must make the dash action away if they can.
Okay, so technically, okay, well, I mean, regardless, it'll be for the duration.
So what level spell is the fear?
Fear is a 3rd level illusion spell.
And
So the same level as Fireball.
And Charm Person's a 1st level.
1st level. There is a 1st level necromancy from Xanathar's guide called Cause Fear, which is a little bit different. It says you awaken the sense of mortality in one creature you can see within range. Construct or undead are immune to this effect. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or become frightened of you until the spell ends. That's basically it. The frightened creature can repeat the saving throw. Yeah, so it's a way greener version of the fear spell.
You know, I mean, realistically though, I mean, requiring concentration, I think, requiring concentration down to a minute. Because I mean, how long does the fear spell last? Because
fear spell
charm is an hour.
Charmed is an hour. Fear spell is concentration up to a minute, just like this is.
Okay. Because I mean, obviously, out of the 2, that is like the heftier of the 2. But the balance is one's a level 3, one's a level 1. You know what I mean? So it's really going to be like even if you want to burn this, I mean, it is really only useful. Yes, it is drastically useful if you want a particular enemy to drop a weapon. But I mean, yeah, and it's all the way at level 6, so you'd already be able to cast either of those spells. I mean, basically, you'd be able to cast
will say
spells.
Not all creatures hold their weapons. There's plenty of animal creatures, dragons, things like that all have natural weapons.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it wouldn't be every scenario, every situation where it's just like you're just dropping your weapons all day long. But I do think that at 6th level, casting the 1st level version where they're just frightened and they don't actually have to take the dash action away makes this feel like a small feat. So I like the fact that it does make them run away. That really
wouldn't do enough, because at that point you might as well just say that, like, yeah, you're right. Like, just basically making them not act versus actually like do something. Yeah.
So it's hard because I like how they're using these spells to kind of like bring this class to life in this specific way where you can affect these people like this. But
let's see. Fear does, yeah. one is more versatile, one's more combat specific. Yeah.
Yes, that is very true. I'll say you can use one in a lot more situations. But again, if it's only for a minute, like, honestly, I would like this if the charmed version could last for an hour. I would say if the charmed version could last for an hour, it'd be so much more versatile, especially out of combat. Because out of combat, charming somebody for a minute, and then the second they're done, they know they were charmed, that's rough. It's like, what am I going to do with that? How I can get through, like, a gate. But, like, for an hour, you could give me a tour in a castle, and I can get to a lot of places.
So he was saying that they did get a suggestion to remove the charm, the they know that you're charmed.
Oh, right.
So where they didn't know that they were charmed. That would be kind of interesting. I always prefer the knowing, just because, again, if you can just charm everybody, and they just never know, it's basically like a permanent thing. Like, you're just permanently changing their memory kind of thing. But knowing at the end is kind of one of those things you want to be away from them by the time you're done. I like where you're going with that, though. Basically, giving the charmed version like up to an hour would be interesting. I would say, like, again, I don't want to get like way too complicated here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind the idea of it like going up to an hour for charmed.
Especially if you're still concentrating on it, because your concentration can be broken, all that other kind of stuff.
And you can't do anything else. You wouldn't be able to cast a spell. Like, I mean, you wouldn't
know the concentration spells, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you would basically be stun locked into that. Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I guess, yeah, it's not really broken, because, I mean, again, you're basically just getting a couple potential spells, lower level, like doled down version of these spells for free.
And again, you can only cast these spells 3 times, period, no matter how many spell slots you have.
You know what I might change? And this has had nothing to do with what we've already talked about. I think maybe one thing I would change is this right here. I might change that to you can take the action to enchant a creature that can see you within 30 feet.
Interesting.
Like, you can't do it to someone whose back is to you.
I would say that's fair.
If you change that, I would probably. I mean, again, it sounds pedantic. It's like as OP as it can be in certain situations. Like, the more we break it down, like, this really isn't that devastating, because, I mean, there is the disarm action. Like, you could just walk up and just disarm someone infinitely, and if you roll better than they do, what's to say that you just can't disarm every creature you come across, right? So it's
disarm them and then cause fear on them.
Yeah, it's like this one. Yeah, this one is pretty, like, guaranteed to, like, turn the tide of a certain battle. But like you said, that's not everyone's gonna have a weapon. Not everyone's gonna need their weapon. Not everyone's gonna have their weapon pulled. And remember, the additional effects is this won't work if they don't see or hear you. Yeah. So.
See or hear you. So yeah, they have to see you.
Oh, they do have to see you? Where did that say?
Was that specifically on the what do you call it? In the section where it was talking about charmed?
Maybe
in the charmed bullet point?
It might that might have said that there. I'm just rereading it real quick. Okay, so just the main spell. So frighten does require sight. Okay, so those would be required. They do require to see you anyway, and then charm requires hearing. Okay, so both of those just naturally would require the person to either see or hear you, respectively.
Okay.
Interesting. It's also what I've also found interesting is you can't, because these aren't spells, you wouldn't be able to double up the other ability with the calligrapher's writing tools.
How do you mean?
So with this class, with the calligrapher's writing tools, you can modify the verbal component to somatical. But because these aren't spells, you wouldn't be able to do that. So you still would need to talk to the person that you're charming.
Yes.
Just trying to think of like other, other ways
restrictions
that this could be like difficult. But no, I mean, yeah, I think it sounds like it could be a lot because I think really the biggest thing is forcing them to drop a weapon and move away is a lot. But realistically, it is just a 3rd level spell. And at 6th level, there would be nothing stopping you from having that spell. So yes, this is giving it to you a couple extra times, but that one spell could do it to the entire enemy team. You know what I mean? It's
if they're surrounded you, yeah.
So yeah, realistically speaking, this really isn't that bad.
So I just was, I don't know if it was a TikTok or something, but they were talking about this spell. I need to know what level it is.
Flavor of the feature was to flip the whole creature's story in a moment. And yeah, I definitely get that because it does fall in line more with like the fabric of reality and things like that. Like, you know, it does make more sense that it is kind of a you're changing the moment because that's what you're doing. You're not changing the constant of reality. You're changing factoids about reality in those moments. You know, you're not rewriting a book.
You're not rewriting the fact that you're attacking me, but I'm rewriting the fact that you got scared when you approached me.
It's not that you're rewriting the chapter, you're just rewriting the paragraph. Doesn't mean that you're not making them a coward and that they don't have any of their skill sets left. You're just writing in that they had a moment and that they can come back from it. So yeah, I think that the knee-jerk reaction is just like 6th level being able to just auto drop anybody's weapon sounds like a lot, but when you put it in the prism of this really is just a choice between a 1st and 3rd level spell. Yeah. And again, we have to look at it from the prism of there's nothing else that has really made this bard OP. There's nothing really that has made it stand out as devastating. This really is the first time it can walk onto the battlefield and be kind of a scary, like, you know, like it coming to the battlefield is a moment to be worried. So realistically, this being the first thing that we've seen from it, and it took 6th level for it to actually be devastating in combat.
To be honest, you're still a bard.
Yeah.
Like, you're still a bard. Like, you're not going to be... Like, you could build a tanky bard.
You could. But you're still just a bard. And this would be more... Maybe this would be more of that moment where you're trying to be in the background and you get rushed.
And you're a support character.
And this is your defense. This is your shield. You basically drop the weapon, they move away from you. Because maybe that's the other aspect that we're not looking at this through is this would be a much more devastating power if you could just deal out that level of damage. If you could just turn around and turn the tide by yourself... This would probably be more.
If a paladin had this,
a barbarian, yeah,
bruh.
Like that would be too much. But basically, you are the supporting character. So to be able to do this to somebody who's wailing on your paladin, or who's your team's about to surround, or who has surrounded you, and you need a quick way out, yeah, like it in and of itself, it sounds bad, but in the greater build of things, it actually fits right in. So yeah. I don't dislike it. I do agree with you, though. Charm should go longer. 1 minute, like 1 minute in combat makes a lot of sense, but narratively speaking, 1 minute doesn't mean anything for roleplay purposes, and you're more likely to use the charmed aspect of this for roleplay or for for
that's
plot
kind
purposes.
Of what I'm thinking.
So I do agree that at least doing that for an hour, and if you could even do a thing where it's like, let it go up to an hour. But at the end of the hour, if you still have, because you can do this up to 3 times up to your proficiency modifier. If you still have burnable ones, at the end of the hour, you could re-up it and continue it on the same target.
Interesting. I like that.
So then you could basically have up to 3 hours. So you could just keep burning it. So you get that extended amount of time. But you have to burn your usages.
Yeah, I think that would be a really cool feature of it.
And that would make it way more, better because then, again, you're still concentrating. So it would be harder to do any like concentration spells or anything else like that. So you're not going to be illusioning anything else. And that's going to be the only thing you can do.
I honestly think adding value to the charm side of it will also decrease the likelihood that they'll use it in combat. Because they'll see how valuable it is and be like, hey, maybe I want to save this last use for when we go into this castle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. Or they might use it.
I think, making Charmed feel a little bit more like usable would make this, would generally just balance us out a little bit more. Because, I think that way it wouldn't feel so I can basically make
I'm just going to spam this fear thing all the whole time.
Because really, like, having that on the battlefield basically means I can make nearly any enemy useless. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you can plan it out to where your buddies stand 10 feet on the other side of him. You do this, and then he dashes into them, causing... Can you imagine them all lining up? You cause the dash action, and then it's opportunity attack after opportunity attack after opportunity attack because he dashes 30 feet, but your guys lined up behind him, and he had to dash by all of your allies. Like, that would be cool. Now, that's very situational, but that would be a cool usage of it. Yep. But what would stop you from basically always trying to do that if you didn't have another reason to burn out those usages, right? Like if you didn't have a reason to use Charmed. So I like that. I think increasing Charmed is not a bad idea. Makes sense. I'll look into what I can do to make Charm more stand out. And again, maybe it's not even just making it more stand out, just make it more enticing to use so that there's always a choice. Like there's more of a choice than just wanting to know that I can dominate someone in combat. But again, it's a bard, so it's really going to play on the player. Maybe the player just doesn't want to dominate in combat,
especially,
right?
You know, I don't know what kind of players Pokeniner plays with, but a lot of them could be a very role play heavy, could be very character heavy, and it's probably because like that would be something I would do. Like I don't care how useful it is in battle, man. If my character loves just charming people and like that's what he's gonna use it for 90% of the time. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah, no. So yeah, that would be really interesting. So yeah, so not overly broken. I think from the prism of it's still a bard, it is only 6th level, and it's the first time they've really been able to do something. And again, I think this is much better looked at not as an aggressive tactic, but as a defensive tactic. I think that right there makes this actually fit much more better with this build and with the lore that we've been told about it so far. Because again, you're not rewriting the chapter, you're just rewriting the paragraph.
Yes.
All right. So next, okay, so that was 6th level. Interesting. Oh, so we went from 3rd level to 6th level, nothing at 8th level.
This is pretty standard for bards.
Oh, is it?
Really? All the subclasses, they jump around on their features. They don't all get their features at the exact same level progression. It's super weird. So some of them will get a 16th feature, some of them will get a 17th feature.
But like I mean, I know Bard gets more stuff, but like from 6th to 14th, maybe this is my problem with 5th edition bards is just, or not 5th edition bards, 5th edition subclassing is like from 6 to 14 to only get the standard. Why the fuck am I a subclass? Like you gave me a bunch of stuff at the beginning, and then I go almost 10 levels of just basic bar. The 10 most like I'm sorry, like yes, all of the stuff I got in the beginning is good foundational stuff, but let's face it, level 6 to 14, that's like 90% of my primary gameplay with this character. I'll be lucky to see level 20 if we ever either game that long or my character lives that long. So from level 6 to level 14 is like the peak of gameplay for most characters. And you're telling me that I've peaked? I've gotten everything I'm basically going to get, and I'm only going to see more if I don't die?
So just as a comparison.
This isn't harsh to you, Pokeniner. This is just my
this is
my personal issue with 5th edition and subclassing.
So as a point of reference, wizards in 5th edition in general, they get a 2nd class feature, a 6th class feature, a 10th class feature, and a 14th level feature.
Okay, so yeah, there's at least one more in there, but still that seems like so little.
And I feel like that is the case with spellcasters. When it comes to spellcasters in general in 5th edition, you get a lot less features and a lot more of your variety comes from the types of spells that you choose to add to your arsenal. That's where a lot, I feel like, of the additional customization comes, because if you compare that to a fighter, when I'm looking at any of these fighter subclasses, I get a 3rd class feature, I got a stupid amount of 3rd class features, and then I get a 7th, I get another 7th, I get another 7th, I get a 10th, I get a 10th, a 15th, 18th. You get so many more features. You get so much more with the class, with the subclasses, because when it comes to the subclasses, like that's where almost all of your identity comes from as a fighter, as a monk, as a whatever kind of martial class. But I think they feel like you can do a lot more when it comes to spellcasters. I disagree. The subclasses spread between classes very well, even for spellcasters. And I think that for spellcasters, I do really feel like that's where some people in 5th edition, they feel like they get a lot of that from. But I'll put it this way. I, again, have never actually got to play a character outside of just being a DM and saying I play the character above level 10 in 5th edition.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've gotten to 5th level once, and I played a 20th level campaign, so I don't really think that counts. But
and that's what I'm saying is like I just I
so
I
feeling
have a
that progression
with 5th edition does it just because it doesn't feel like, again, it feels like they try to get you, you know, within the first couple levels, they get you figured out what you want to do, and then they're just like, wait until you're a good gamer. Like, wait until you're, like, you know, a bigger level. Then we'll talk about what you really can do if you survive that. You know, it's one of the, and maybe this is where maybe a lot of people have hard time doing those longer campaigns. Like, you know, we've seen this, like, in the communities a lot, where people complain where it is hard to do long, higher level campaigns where you go from 1 to 20 without a lot of leveling up, without fast level up. And maybe this is part of it. Maybe part of it is just it's a struggle in the DMs to keep things fresh and interesting when the players go stagnant like this.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, like, when you have a subclass like this is an awesome subclass, but let's say you get to level 6, by level 8, you've used all the stuff that you've learned, right? And now you're a bard. You're going to wait till level 10 to get one of your standard bar feats. And you're going to stay that same bard, doing the same things you've been doing since level 6. Maybe you have one extra feat that you can use. Maybe you took an ASI instead. But then you have another 4 levels after that to finally do something new. Like, that's 8 levels of campaigning with really no new features, with no new progression for the player. That's a lot of stress on the DM to keep things fresh and challenging for them to be able to feel like their stuff is useful.
As a player, insert in there anytime I, as a player, gain access to a new spell level. Because just in general, yes, for a couple of levels, you just get the same set of spell lists, and maybe I can get one more, or maybe I can get this one over here. But once you get, like, because I can't tell you how many times I've been a spellcaster, and I finally get access to 3rd level spells, and I'm like, a whole new world. Like, I don't even care what my class features are. I just want to check out my new spell list and start figuring out how I know that that's where a lot of that comes from as a player on that level in the 5th edition side. So, but I do agree that there are some times where that gap can feel long.
Yeah,
right.
And I feel like it's more stress on the DMs is all I'm saying. It's like, maybe that is a thing that no one realizes is why those long-term campaigns, or, you know, the higher level campaigns, like that mid-tier stuff, is just hard to do because you're trying to come up with mid-tier, you know, mid-campaign level challenges, but you have to only use the same skill sets that they've had, right? Like, and again, this is where stereotype versus tradition probably comes into play, because if people are all playing the stereotypes, you know, you can only challenge a rogue to unlock so many chests and pickpocket so many pockets.
Right.
If you're not making them scale walls or sneak past guards or climb through windows or, you know, decide how much, you know, this item is over this item to go take back to the loan shark. Like, if you're not challenging them holistically as a class and you're only challenging their stereotype, I can see why a lot of those campaigns just fall short of fun after a while, because you're like, what else can I do with you guys? You haven't learned anything to do new, and I can't give you any more challenges because you guys only do the same 3 things, right? You stab, you slash, and you fireball. What do you guys want? I can only make so many tinderbox rooms that you guys are just going to die in.
Kaboom.
But yeah, no. This is just one of those things where it's like, I happen to notice it here where it's like we go from 6th to 14th, and it's like, man, this is such a cool subclass. I would like to see even just one thing
more features
from this subclass, because this whole concept, like, here's one thing that I would even suggest. It may already be later. I don't think you would have done this later down the road. I think you would have probably already done this by now. But one thing I would love to add here, and even if you added this at 10th level, this would be kind of a cool concept. I would assume this would be done earlier, but actually at 10th level, this could be that mid-tier gameplay change-up that could really change the face of the entire second half of your gameplay, right? So imagine a 10th level feature in between the sixth one of plot twist, and the next one we'll go over, which is Muse of Inspiration. But what if 10th level you got a feature to where you can use your Bardic Inspiration against enemies? So right now,
Just like Bane lightweight?
Well, because Bardic Inspiration right now is only a positive thing you can give to your allies. It is a thing that they can add to their rolls. They can only benefit from these things, and you only give them to people you like. And we've seen one variation where you can add it to negative
to get away from their saving throw.
What if at 10th level you could give Bardic Inspiration to an enemy, but it works the exact opposite? It's basically, I don't know what the term of
Bardic subtraction.
Yeah, but yeah, instead of inspiring them, like you're demotivating them. So like it would basically be a feature that allows you to give them a die roll, you roll it and subtract that from whatever roll that you want them to have. Like the same rolls that would be a normal Bardic Inspiration would affect, but it just affects it negatively.
Interesting.
Because that feels like that's what this should do.
In a certain situation that would have to be like reactionary to them doing a specific thing.
So like you could basically use your reaction to inflict Bardic Inspiration on an enemy and subtract that die roll from any of the normal Bardic Inspiration feats, right? If it's a saving throw, you can remove it from their saving throw. If it's an ability check, you can remove it from their ability check. Something like I think that would be kind of cool because it goes along with the idea of kind of rewriting history in that moment. It's almost like when certain characters can force you to reroll a crit.
Right.
Because what is it like? Is it halflings? No, halflings reroll ones.
Halflings reroll ones.
Isn't there a subclass that allows you to make the enemy reroll crit? If they crit damage, that you can make them reroll it?
I will say that I know that there is a cleric subclass that gives you the ability to, as a reaction, cancel a crit. So if an enemy crits on one of your allies within 30 feet of you, you can be like, by the way, that's not a crit, it's a regular hit.
Oh, okay.
That's what I know of. But there might be something else with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. This isn't necessarily a critique on your build, Pokeniner, but I would love to see more subclass features like that. Just added in general to 5th edition. But if you were interested, I would say that would be kind of cool, being able to at 10th level, because at that point you're basically rewriting. You're rewriting individual moments at that point, right?
Right.
And being able to, because again, you only have like so many Bardic Inspirations, right? So to be able to decide whether to use them for good or for evil, in a sense, for your allies or for the bad guys, those could be, I think, those could open up more moments for the bard.
Your Bardic Inspirations go up as you level up, right? Hold on, I'm just talking about base bard.
I don't know.
I've never played a 5th edition bard, so the only bard I'm playing is yours.
Yeah, the 2nd edition. And we got another note here. So TLDR version, bards get the least amount of subclass levels. I agree that it feels odd that they have such a gap in the subclass identity. Also means that the bard 3rd and 6th levels have to define the bard for most of the identity of the story. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
And that's harsh because, again, you kind of just basically get stuck with it. It's just the unfortunate short end of the stick of bards in 5th edition. I 100% agree. But we can solve that with our own subclasses.
Does it not even say? Hold on.
No, I do believe you get more Bardic Inspiration as you level up, right? Isn't it?
Bardic Inspiration.
You get a certain number of die.
You could.
I think it goes up with your class level, kind of like your hit die.
Charisma modifier.
Oh,
you can use this feature equal to your charisma modifier. You gain expanded uses when you. Personally, I think that should get bigger, because if you think about the resources that different classes have,
so the amount stays the same, the die increases, so you get a higher die number, but the amount you have stays the
same. Unless your charisma modifier will increase.
Yeah.
So again, when I look at the type of resources other classes have available to them, they increase over time. Like when you look at the monk and their key points, when you look at the sorcerer and their sorcery points, when you look at a lot of these other classes and what they can do, you get more of them. Now, I do like that they get bigger over time, but it still feels like...
So what about an alternative or an addition to being able to use your Bardic points against enemies? Either an alternative or addition to that at 10th level. What about your Bardic die? The amount of Bardic die you have increases by your proficiency bonus. So at 10th level, you go from your charisma modifier max to your charisma plus your proficiency bonus. And all of that is how many bardic die you have.
I do
So
like
at 10th level, you would basically, that's what, again, you would just overload with how many you have. So it's like that later game, you now have access to
a bunch more. Interesting.
Because then at that level, because again, at that level, the higher die help, but only having still 3 to do is pretty harsh.
Because it's like, that's how many times you actually get to have an effect,
exactly.
Right? You know what I mean? And so it's like, if I'm going to be this bard that can rewrite history, if I can only affect like still 2 things, I could have affected those same exact 2 things back at level 1 that I can now today, right? It's just, I have a higher likelihood of it happening. I feel like giving them more to do feels like they've gained more and they've actually become more powerful.
Yeah. Okay. And then so I say the difference between those 2 things are that they're resources that do nothing on their own. Bardics on their own are resources with benefits. Most of those with benefits are quite often limited.
I will say that. So when you think about wizards, they don't really get any feature like that. They just have their spells, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what their bread and butter is. I'd say bards as full casters are very similar to that. Like druids, they get their wild shape, but actually, that's a very fair example. Druids in their wild shape, that they do not get more than 2 wild shapes until they hit level 20.
Yeah,
before
true.
that, you just get what I think it's like. Your the amount of time you can wild shape increases, but the number of wild shapes you get doesn't increase. Which again, I still find a little crazy. Wait, does it?
Yeah,
I could be misspeaking. Let me make sure I'm not talking out my butt here.
Yeah, yeah. So there's plenty of ways that we could add it, and I would highly, I would encourage you to. Not saying that you need to for any balancing purposes, but I mean, Pokeniner, you obviously agree that the Bard subclass could use some improvements, especially with the way that 5th edition does it. I mean, depending upon how strict you and your players are with how you guys game, with the rule sets, I would encourage you not to be afraid to add a 10th level feature here. Like, I don't think your players would, riot and pitchfork against you for giving them one extra little boost, mid gameplay, right? As long as you felt it was balanced, as long as they didn't feel like it was,
unfair to anybody else who's playing a bard and didn't choose this subclass.
Yeah, or if it didn't feel like wedged in there, as long as you obviously have a very good eye for adding in what features go with your classes, like how they meld together. So whether or not you take our examples or not, or come up with your own, I would say that there would be nothing wrong with making a 10th level. You know what I mean? I don't think making an 8th level would really help, because then you're just going to be wanting to do it every 2 levels. But adding one more little thing in here just to kind of give it a new direction, or just one new thing to be able to do, I really don't think would be a bad trend for us to start doing, like with just in general, anybody creating subclasses, like
right,
filling in the gaps. Because why live with the gaps? D&D gave us a gap that none of us like. Why live with it? Like, we have that power, and it doesn't have to be super crazy either. But I digress. That has nothing to do with the review. That is our personal gripes with 5th edition in general. So take that for what you will. But let's move on to 14th level. So now we have Muse of Inspiration. At 14th level, as an action, you can choose a number of willing creatures equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1, to be your muses. For the next hour, as long as you and a muse are inside of each other, you both have advantage on all charisma and wisdom saving throws. When you enter initiative, the muses also gain a bardic inspiration point without spending one of your own. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. This is interesting. This might be the first time I feel like it's gone in a direction that I wasn't anticipating, because muses always give me a different mindset, but that's fair. I'm trying to imagine how this all works, because we're talking about manipulating reality with writing and everything, and it's interesting because it's like, when I think of muses, it's always like one way, right? Like bards are essentially muses. Bardic inspiration is what a muse does, right? So this is interesting because it's like it's going two ways. So they're both going to get benefits from it. So I'm not necessarily, disagreeing with that, because it would kind of suck if you're only ever buffing your party and you don't get anything benefits from it. But it's like the first time it's felt like it's fallen outside of the rewriting reality.
The original theme.
And then, so this one goes for an hour, and you can choose a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier, and you will all have advantages on charisma and wisdom saving throws. So so there's two parts here, really. It's you get advantage on charisma and wisdom saving throws, and everyone gets a free bardic inspiration. So I really like the free bardic inspiration.
I do as well.
Especially tying that, if you tied that with the original power of set the scene. So you burn all your bardic inspiration points to give everyone bardic inspiration, and then on top of that, this happens. And then they all get their like own bardic inspiration. Like you could basically double those up, right? And give them a bunch of bonuses on their rolls.
I would say, so what I would say is, like, if at the beginning of this combat, because what it sounds like is you enter into this Muse of Inspiration mode where you have all these muses and it lasts for an hour, right? Mm-hmm. And then if throughout that hour you enter into combat,
everyone gets a free bardic
everybody gets a free bardic inspiration.
But if at the beginning of that combat you also activate set the scene,
yes,
you flood everybody with a basic all of your bardic inspiration.
Now, my question would be, number one, does that happen every time you enter into combat in that hour, or does it happen one time?
It says when you enter initiative. I read that as any time.
Because think about it. If you imagine you're in a tournament, and you're just going into combat after combat after
I would assume that that's
every single time you getting free.
Based on the fact that it's the muse and everything, and you're connected, I assume it's every time you initiate combat.
I would,
which I don't think that's a problem. I don't see that as a problem.
Also, let's see.
So you can only use it once per long rest, but I guess where I'm also wondering is like the advantage on charisma and wisdom saving throws. Like I'm trying to figure out, like,
I will say in spell casting, there's a lot of wisdom saving throws. Charisma, maybe less so, but I'd say more often than some other ones. So depending on if you're going to be in a high magic world, those could be fairly valuable.
Okay.
And think about in a lot of social settings, if somebody wants to cast a spell on your mind in a social setting outside of combat, that's another thing you're fairly protected from with both of those charisma and so I'd say
that makes sense for the hour. Okay, so that part makes sense. Interesting.
I do agree with what you were saying. Like, I want to, especially because we've gotten such a really awesome, clear vision up until this point of how synergistic and how much this entire class makes sense holistically. I wanna understand, like, how this rewriter of history is going about using this feat.
So how do you feel about this? Like, okay, so I get the charisma and wisdom saving throws. Like, I get kind of like the party linking, right? Mm-hmm. But when I think of like muse of inspiration, right? Like the idea is like you're the bard, you're the muse. And the idea is you're trying to give out inspiration. So the free bardic inspiration at the beginning of initiative works. Everyone getting the charisma and wisdom saving throws, it works. Like I don't think it's so overpowering that it's not a problem to keep added, right? But what if we add one small little thing to where when you enter initiative, the muses also gain a bardic inspiration without spending one of your own?
Okay.
But what if they were all given the ability to gift that bardic inspiration or use it themselves? So essentially, the muse of inspiration is turning everyone into a temporary bard. So you give them all a bardic inspiration, but at any one of their turns, they can use it for themselves or go, hey, that's about to happen to you. I give you my bardic inspiration.
Would you allow that to be a reaction?
Yeah.
Like
I think so.
Okay.
I think that would just that small thing of yes, they all get the bonuses on Charisma and Wisdom. They all get a Bardic Inspiration when they enter initiative. But the idea of creating this like group of like you're the Muse of Inspiration and you're collectively charging all of them. I think the idea of you're the Muse of Inspiration, but they can also inspire each other. I think that would change the whole battlefield.
So with that in mind, I can almost see, because again, you're a writer, right? You're out here writing what these stories are gonna look like, right? Well, imagine, again, you think about inspiration. Like I am inspiring these people to be the heroes of whatever story is about to go down. Mm-hmm. I am inspiring each and every one of you to be beacons in this moving forward. And just like you're talking about, once they get that Bardic Inspiration, once we go into combat, you guys are those beacons. You guys are those beacons, so you can dole out the inspiration that you got to somebody else. You can be like, hey, I have it, but you need it right this second, and you don't have yours anymore. Boom, there's yours. And then everybody can do that until they're all gone.
And let's extrapolate this. If we were to add that 10th level feature that I mentioned, where you can use your Bardic Inspiration against enemies, and let's go one step further, just go, pipe dream. Let's just say we also gave that it also added your proficiency bonus to how many die you had. At this stage, what if you could just add that extra benefit to this group of muses, right? So not only do they all get a free Bardic Inspiration that they can use for themselves or another player, but they also get your ability to use it against enemies. So basically, in that 1 hour, everyone has basically their own version of Bardic Inspiration.
I mean, you get one of them.
One of them for yourself or for someone else, but the entire party does.
And if you use that other feat, you'd get 2 of them.
Yeah. You'd get one for yourself guaranteed and then one still to gift out, right? But yeah, I think that would be maybe the one thing I would add just to make this a little bit more in line with like what the name insinuates, because the Muse of Inspiration, like you are given a lot of inspiration and tying everyone together. But I think trying to tie in how you're rewriting, the story, you're basically, like you said, you're making everyone a beacon to where it's not just you manipulating the story, but they all can. They are all connected. We are the heroes of the story. You are the muse that is inflicting the inspiration upon them to change the story, right? Through you. You're still the writer, but they are your muse. They are the pieces that will inspire how the story is manipulated.
I don't know.
And giving those players that choice, I think, would be cool.
I don't know if this was said when we started talking about this, but Pokeniner said that you've now focused on them as the main characters. And I think that might be in line with what we were talking about how, again, they're now the heroes of the story. They're now...
So let's see. So Bardic's... Okay, so this one says, the idea is that you've become such major players in the story that you've now focused on them as their characters kept intact, that you don't want them being written out of the story with stuns or spell effects. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I think he was talking about why we were talking about charisma and wisdom saving throws, is the idea that you basically, they're becoming they are now, you are the rewriter of the story, but they are your main characters. So this is your way to make sure that they stay the main characters, they stay alive. This is their way of, it's basically plot armor. It's the insinuation that this is you as the author.
That's from the anime one, not this one. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
But that's how I read that. No, that's what I think that Pokeniner is trying to get across, legit. Is that this is because they are, your party is your main story, you don't want them to go down. You want to make sure their story
This is
continues.
exactly what I needed. I needed that picture.
If that's the case, then I think giving them the ability to use Bardic Inspiration, I could just change the name to Plot Armor. Honestly, sounds like a great name. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like I still think it would be kind of cool to just tack in the fact that they get to use it, because I think that would also just add in this idea that, again, when I think of muse, right, I think of it's the thing that's giving you the inspiration, the thing that's helping you guide the story. And if this character is supposed to be the author and the manipulator of the story, giving them the ability to not go down is cool, but giving them to the chance to manipulate the story you're telling is the idea of them being a muse. And vice versa, right? You are their muse to give them inspiration, and they are their muse to help change the story. I think that makes the most sense for them to be able to kind of just be their temporary bard. And again, make them all shine, right? You're trying to make them the heroes of the story, so let them turn the story's tide. Not you, not the author, but them, the main characters. But that's just me. I still think it works. I still think it's okay. I think as is, it is just a little bit like it's, again, I will only say that it's not imbalanced. It's not bad. It is just the first time it was like, first time it didn't feel exactly like the rewriter of reality.
I will say it definitely took me a second to see it, but I can see a path to get there. I can see a path to get there.
It's there. It's for sure there. It's just the first one that wasn't the most. It
didn't pop out at you.
Yeah,
that's fair.
All right, and then we have another at 14th level. So words to build upon. I love these names though. I gotta say, like the naming structure you have is so awesome.
So clean.
All right, words to build upon. At 14th level, your words can influence people to shape their destinies in the moment. When a character rolls one of your bardic inspiration die, before knowing the roll succeeds or fails, you can choose... Before knowing if the roll succeeds or fails, you can use your reaction to have it roll the maximum amount. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So when you give someone a bardic inspiration and then they roll it, before anything happens, you can just be like, that's max. But you can only do it once. So
once per short rest, so you can get it back after resting.
I'm gonna say I feel like this one's shooting you. I feel like this is like getting shot in the foot, to be honest. I feel like this one's shooting itself in the foot. I 100% believe you are the rewriter of reality. Why can't you know what it does beforehand? I 100% think that you're rewriting reality. That power should be, you rolled my bardic inspiration. That's not going to succeed. Fuck it. It is going to succeed. I would say that this power you should get to change it after the fact. You should get to basically make it max if you know it's going to fail.
Would you go a step further and say they should know whether maxing it will cause it to succeed or if it won't even be enough? Do you know what I mean?
So that really depends on if you want this to be a guaranteed rewrite of reality, or if you still want there to be some sort of chance in the makeup of reality. If it's really about, again, this is that context of like what we talked about before. If the context and the intent is really to make this character, I am a bard rewriting the fabric of reality, then you should know A, whether it succeeded or failed first, and B, if it will help. If it's still kind of the world is up to chance, but you're trying to rewrite it for the best possible chance, then no, you don't get to know, but you do get to know if it failed first. Because then again, you're just giving it the best chance. You're not guaranteeing a reality. But that's the intent of the character. I just think that I love this power. I love the idea that I could just be like, nope, that's gonna pass. But not knowing whether or not, like doing that before I know whether it's going to succeed or fail, feels like that should have been given to me at 7th level, and then now I should be getting the
ability to know,
because I am rewriting reality. Why would I rewrite reality if I don't know what's going to I would rewrite reality if I knew I didn't like the outcome. And again, kind of like talking about before, like what Pokeniner was saying about Muse of Inspirations. These are the main characters. I want them to succeed. So I should know if the story is going to go in a bad, no, I'm going to, it's basically like you're writing the story and you're like, and then he takes, a dagger to the jaw. No, I'm going to erase that. Takes a dagger to the shoulder. It's like you literally wrote history and were like, I don't like that, erase
scratch it out, go back,
and then
rewind.
Over it.
Yep.
That's what I feel, and that's what this whole lore sounds like it's trying to do. You're trying to shape reality, and this is almost your moment to literally go back 5 seconds.
Of
like
one of my favorite movies. Have you ever seen Galaxy Quest?
Oh, with the 15, the button that either destroys the universe or goes back 15 seckons.
Come on.
And that's the idea, right? Because we've been building up to this character that manipulates reality, right? We're trying to manipulate reality for our benefit. We're getting extra bardic points. We're being able to change enemies' roles, but we're slightly shifting when people start battle, right? We're being able to manipulate reality at the moment. And throughout, he's actually, Pokeniner's mentioned that too, where it's like in the moment. But this is like the most powerful you're going to be. It should be that ability to basically take that half a step back, right? You're not rewriting the whole paragraph. You're literally erasing 3 or 4 words. You took it's like the enemy came up and sliced his throat and killed him. I don't like that. The enemy came up and just as he was about to slice his throat and kill him, he slipped in. Like, there's just little things you can do to change the narrative. And that's what this feels like it should be doing, is words to build upon, is you should be looking at that going, oh, you were going to fail. Let me build upon that. No. We're going to get you just to that point. So that's how I feel like this is almost just not showing off what this subclass is all about by not allowing you to change it after. That's my thought. I love it. I think this is a great ender. I just think that I don't understand why you
Can
would
you read
limit
the
it.
power one more time?
So at 14th level, your words can influence people to shape their destinies in the moment. When a character rolls one of your bardic inspiration dice, before knowing if the roll succeeds or fails, you can use a reaction to have it roll maximum amount.
Does that include you? Because didn't we talk about them? Like, there's an ability for us to use this negatively, right?
No, that was my potential. Well, you can only use it negatively back here when you were doing the.
Does that count as rolling a bardic inspiration die?
Let's see. So.
Because doesn't that happen when you're trying to see if
There's a plot twist, right? So
was it?
you can also choose to expand and roll a bardic inspiration die when using this feature. If you do, the creature must subtract the roll of your bardic die.
So you're expending, and when a character,
I mean, I'm assuming it was intended for an ally, but yeah, and then you could just rewrite that as when any of your bardic inspiration die are used. Pokeniner says I should probably have these only affect other creatures. Okay, so in that particular case, yeah. So I think the idea is that since you aren't the main character, right? So you aren't intended as the main character.
That's fair.
So you were just the storyteller. So again, I really do think that words to build upon. Even if you wanted to push it to 15th level, I really do think that it shouldn't matter. And like, it shouldn't be limited to before you know if it succeeds or fails. I absolutely think, especially because you're limited it to one time per short or long rest. You get one of these per rest. I feel like it absolutely should be that turning tide. Because again, the Bard hasn't really done anything that's like really like, fully change the sort of battle. Like you get some bonus to initiative. This would be that one time that they just get to rewrite everything and go, no, you're not going down. That's not striking. That crit didn't happen, right? Like that's where I feel like this needs to happen. This is the time the Bard basically like gets overwhelmed. It's that like, that anime moment where they just scream out, no! And then like the world freezes and then they're just like, that's not going to happen. And then they literally physically rewrite it.
Out of
and
curiosity,
then the whole thing just replays out.
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure you can use bardic inspiration on death saves, right? I don't see there's any reason why not.
Can you?
Like, because generally speaking, there is no modifier to death saving throws. There's nothing.
Yes, you can.
Okay. That's what I thought. Because I would love to see this feature being used at a time like that. Hey, let me use some bardic inspiration so that I don't fail my...
And that's the thing. Yeah, so once within the next 10 minutes, the creature can roll the die and add the number rolled to the ability check, attack roll, or saving throw it makes.
Saving throw. Yep, that's saving throw, for sure.
Yeah. So that would be my only thing. I just think it falls a little bit short. I think that it still falls in line with it, but I just, at 14th level, as a player even, I'd be like, you know what I mean? Like, I can only do this once. It's kind of a shot in the dark. Like, it's literally I want this one roll to succeed.
I would really not want to just...
That's like, it's literally has to be the one roll everyone wants to succeed. But what would suck is what if it already was going to succeed, right? Like, this is that one thing as a bard you get to do to make someone stand out as the main character. They were going to die. They were going to take a critical hit and be beheaded, and you can use this to stop that. They were going to take a death saving throw and die, and you stopped that.
I will say this. I played Destiny back in the day when it first came out, and one of my favorite classes was the Warlock, and they had this Sunbringer class, right? Where their class ability is you can come back from the dead as long as it's within 3 seconds of when you died.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so I was playing this raid, and when everybody wipes in your raid party, you got to reset the raid and start it all the way over from the beginning. But everybody in my party wiped. It was 3 seconds. I came back up. I got all our team members back up, and we had another. That's what this feels like. It feels like at the last second when somebody's gonna go down, when everybody's down, and you think the game is over. Nope, no, it's not. Like
Yeah,
I can
change
I
that.
can be the one that like makes you be the hero or whatever, because you're using it on these other people, and they're able to.
Yeah, you're
do
bumping whatever the thing that you gave them, but you're guaranteeing
Yes.
that it works. And that's also that kind of thing of, again, you're the storyteller, right? They have this bardic inspiration. They're the main character. They use said bardic inspiration to do this amazing feat, and it's going to fall short. And there you are in the background going, nuh-uh, fudge the number. You do it, buddy. Like, again, it falls right in line with that
Yeah.
whole, you're not there to be the guy that says, I made that happen. You're the guy there that goes, you're going to make that happen.
You made it happen.
So yeah, that's where I would go with it. Obviously we're passionate about it, but I'm not as passionate. Like, understand, Pokeniner, that the passion doesn't come from me believing my idea is that much better and being excited about my idea. The passion comes from the fact that this is bringing out these ideas and that it's making us want to discuss them. Because it would be one thing to just be like, oh yeah, it would be better this way and move on, right? It's much more exciting when we're this passionate about the changes. It's because we like what we see, and we're like excited to make it better, but at the same time,
And it's
when it's hard to make it better, right? When it's hard to critique it, there's that exciting part of like, ooh, I'm excited because I could improve on something that I already think is good. It's like, it's that whole thing of, I think this is good enough, but I'm excited that I'm being inspired to try to make it better.
And I totally get what you're saying. It's hard for me because it's like, for me, it's this is good. Like, there are plenty of things that I might tweak or change, but it's like, imagine there are so many good anime out there, and it'd be like, oh, I wish that anime had, if he was wearing this clothes instead or whatever. It doesn't change the fact that that anime is phenomenal, right? And I didn't write the anime, I didn't come up with it, so you can create it and design it however you want, because that's the vision that they had. And I really think, and I felt this since we started reading this, that Pokeniner has done a phenomenal job at capturing what he wanted to create.
100%.
And I think that there might be some, I don't think there's a lot of imbalance, maybe like a piece here or there, but a lot of the stuff we're talking about is, like you're saying, more preference than better or worse. It's more like, oh, I like this aspect of it. Oh, I think this would make this piece cooler, right? And I think that we can do all kinds of stuff with that, but overall, this build, this subclass does beautiful things. Does things that I wish so many other subclasses would do. And
it's taking the foundation of the lore that you're building and actually using it instead of just trying to mechanically represent it, because that's what we see a lot of the times. Is we see a lot of these,
way to put it.
we see a lot of these ideas
Just
from
mechanically
subclasses that are
representing it.
being represented mechanically, but when you look at them as a playable character, they're not put together. They don't represent the idea in any fundamental way, but mechanically you could say, well, see, it does this, and therefore that's just like that. And it's like, yes, but that doesn't explain it. It doesn't represent what you're trying to go off, right? Like, this whole time, this entire Bard has been about rewriting reality, and every power has leaned into that. It's not just you get to do bardic inspiration. It's like the bardic inspiration has a purpose because you're actually manipulating what has happened, right? Being able to do, muse of inspiration, being able to do plot twist and actually like change how creatures feel about you in the moment. Those are things that I think lean into the lore, which again, we don't see a lot. It's not just mechanically, it's playability wise. This leans into the lore that we want. I actually also just thought of another option for 10th level.
Yeah.
So at 10th level, I had my original idea was potentially giving bardic inspiration as an option to go against enemies and/or increasing your amount of bardic die to include your proficiency modifier, right? So what if a different version is at level 6, you got the option to basically cast Frighten or Charmed on one person, right? What if at level 10, you basically got to do your level 6 power, but any of your allies could be the target? So right now at level 6, the enemy would be frightened of you, the bard. Oh. And so it's defensive at level 6. Defensive at level 6. But at level 10, you could basically be like, hey, yo, the enemy's now afraid of you, the main character.
I really like that.
So it turns it's still defensive, but it's offensive for your party and not just for you. So maybe to help balance out that level 10, basically just say that you can do plot twist.
And I'll say,
but instead of targeting yourself as the object, you can target your ally.
There are plenty of features that just say that they get X, Y, and Z improvement at X level. And so if this feature was just that, it just was like, hey, you get X, Y, and Z improvement to this ability at 10th level.
Yeah, it's on a new ability. It just means that instead of charming someone and making it you the friend or making you the fear, you can instill the charm on your ally. So the paladin is now the one who is charming and
they're
the friend.
What's the terminology? The subject of fear, or the subject of charm.
Yeah, they're the subject. So your paladin could become the charmed. So he's the one who the NPC likes, or your barbarian can become the feared, and that's the one the enemy runs away from. That actually sounds really kind of cool because it would fall into early stages you're being defensive against yourself. You're the one trying to stop attacks. And then later you've gotten good enough to where you're playing the sidelines and helping you're making them the heroes. You're making them be afraid. You're making them be the charmed one who's talking their way through the guards. Because what we're hearing from Pokeniner is that you aren't the main character as this bard. You were just the storyteller. So it makes sense that as you progress in levels, all your power begins to focus away from you and on to the other players.
I like that.
So that's another alternative that I would offer for 10th if we're still liking the idea of filling it in. Because, again, it really depends on if Pokeniner cares to do that or wants to stick with how 5th edition
it sounds like Pokeniner really enjoys the progression that 5th edition has. Like, again, I haven't got to, play through spellcasters, all the way through. So,
yeah.
I guess specifically at this level, I would have no idea what that feels like. But, it sounds like they're into it. And especially because, who knows how long they've been DMing and they've seen their players go through a lot of these different aspects. But yeah,
I'm glad that makes sense, Pokeniner. And again, these are just for, again, we have our own. Again, I'm a 2nd edition main player, so 5th edition is just. Sometimes 5th edition can feel very foreign to me because I'm not as proficient with it and not as keen on everything and have it all memorized. So sometimes things feel a little bit weird. And again, I am not necessarily all for homebrewing out the rules as written. I'm just very much for making things fit better and making them more fun for both the DM and the players. And so, I'm not. I don't want to min-max everything and make everything OP and make every, playing character the most powerful creature to ever live. But I'm also definitely down for filling in those gaps when they feel a little bit like I'm not really getting much. So again, being able to change something like Bardic Inspiration, how it's used. You're not doing anything. You're just changing a way a current power can function. If you do what Kage was saying and just can focus the, shift the focus of the spell. It's not fundamentally giving them anything new, but it is broadening their opportunities.
Yeah.
So again, it's not so much you need to fix this and fill it in more because D&D's failing. It's just that if you were there, we would definitely encourage it and think that it would be a benefit, not because it makes it more powerful, but because it makes it more holistic. And that's the difference, right?
And I can totally see that.
Big difference between the balancing is we're not trying to overbalance it because 5th edition makes it too weak. We're just trying to fulfill it. We're trying to make sure that it holistically makes sense when a player actually gets to play. And like you said, it's the difference between, are you going to play this from a automatic starting point of 10th level, or are you going to play through it? And those two experiences could mean a big difference when you're talking about how it should actually go through.
Yeah.
There are some players or some game sessions who don't go through every level. They do, they go 1 level, 3rd level, 5th level, 10th level, they level up in large chunks, right? Others go every single level. Others do it by hey, every gaming session. So yeah, how you game is also going to change how you experience this class. So that's the other aspect you got to consider is if you're going to be leveling up constantly, maybe adding all those extras would make this just maybe make it OP too quickly.
Right.
Maybe what we're talking about is from the expectation that it's a slow burn game. It's going to be 3-4 gaming sessions in between level ups. And in that case, I'm going to want 3-4 gaming sessions with a new power every 3-4 gaming sessions. I don't want to wait 10, 15, 20 gaming sessions to learn something new. So
Right.
it's very, very, dependent upon how you anticipate this being used. But yeah, no, it's like Kage was saying, it's so well built, it's so well layered with itself, and it sticks it sticks to form and function. Right?
Yes.
Like from the very beginning, you
Yes.
gave us a clear idea of what this bard is meant to be, and from the start to finish, that's exactly what we got. Nothing that was unexpected, nothing that seemed out of place. There was only the one time, that one power that just seems to deviate slightly, and overall it's fine. It's just it didn't have that.
For me, it just
initial-
didn't hit me in the face with it. It wasn't as apparent and as I don't know what the word is, but as obvious as the other ones were. But
it fits though. It still builds upon
Yes.
the same idea. And I think what you have here is a fantastic class. I mean, I will say, like, also what Kage was saying in terms of like a 5th edition class as is from a player point of view. I would be very interested to try this out as is. Like there is nothing wrong with it in terms of its build and in terms of its power. It's very well balanced. It's very thought out, and I think that it's also really well scaled. 5e is both kind and unkind to parts.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm glad that you point out that, recognizing that the subclass isn't a defining factor for players too. And that's a great thing too, right? Like that's the thing is I think too many people try to make a subclass so standoutish that it literally lives on its own. But we got to remember, subclass isn't meant to be a standalone. It's meant to be a part of a bigger picture. It's part of a party, and it's also part of a much bigger community, right? A subclass of bard is still a bard. They're all bards, right? So they all still have to operate within a community, but they all can't be. They're not all individual classes. They're all still a bard, and they all function as that bard's function in the party. You're not going to have that, that bard subclass that is a standalone barbarian. Like that's not what it's meant for, right? You can multi-class, you can do all of that, but you're not going to get a bard that fulfills the barbarian's role.
Yes.
And you shouldn't expect to play a room full of bards and everybody fill a completely different class's role. Because then what's the point, right? You want to be able to have those specifics. So I really like what's going on here with that. And I do like the naming conventions. Like the naming that you have is so good.
So clever.
So fucking good. Okay, now the hard part. Now we get down to the hardest part is actually figuring out the high point side of this. Because as a 5th edition class, as a 5th edition subclass, I think it's rock solid, and I think that it would be a lot of fun to play. But looking at it from the point of view of high point. Now, again, high point's a little bit different because even though I do allow like subclasses and subclass builds and everything, it's not a core mechanic of 2nd edition. So I do have to keep that in mind, right? This comes with a lot more than what we're seeing because Bard comes with a whole mess of stuff. So we have to keep that in mind as well. So right off the bat, I'm trying to think because like it's not campaign specific, so it doesn't lose a point there. So right out the gate, that's a benefit that it won't lose a point for being campaign or setting specific. Now, I will say though, as much as I really love this, and it's such a like casting silence. Let's say I think most of the neat interactions of playing is the exploration of verbal spells, trying to find out what spells are verbal and how to take advantage of them, like casting silence and having a space where you have the casting floor. That's actually not a bad idea too, because you can cast silence and still be a spellcaster, unlike everybody else.
Yes.
No, that's a good point too. Yeah, like the writing prowess option and the message cantrip option, those are really unique, and I really do like that. So let's see here. Okay, so it's not setting specific. So one thing I'm having a hard time with those, like as much as I do like this, it is encroaching on my. So
something that already exists.
Well, yeah. So I don't have a specific bard class that interacts with the meta text, but the meta text is something that is interactable. It is something that is researchable. It is something that's adventurable. It is an adventure in my realm. It is protected knowledge, so it's deep. It's much later game adventure. But the metatext is something that you can venture into, and it has very, very similar effects. Like you can basically get similar, if not identical, effects and plenty more. But it's not a class, right? It's not. That's something that you would have to adventure for and innately get.
But
to.
having a subclass that overlaps with those abilities might be breaking.
It just doesn't fit lore wise for people to innately mess with the metatext, but only because of how guarded it is. Now, I could say that early edition High Point, like first edition High Point, like before the first Great War, I could see this fitting in. I could probably have seen that there were more minor accessibilities to the metatext and being able to manipulate reality until, the war got to, the first Great War where power actually got divvied up and everything. So, sorcerers do mess with metatext a bit with Subtle Spell. Do they?
So
interesting.
Subtle Spell, like it's very similar because Subtle Spell allows you to remember we talked about that when we talked about meta magic.
It's what changes, right?
You remove those components; they're gone.
But see, that's
verbal and somatic components, and you just have the material.
Right, but that's not quite the same as metatext. Like that could be considered borderline, but that's not quite the same as manipulating reality via metatext. In terms of like the way that I use the lore.
I see what you're saying.
So that's the thing is like in terms of like High Point relatability, I'm trying to think of like, I like the idea of manipulating reality. I mean, obviously High Point would do it in a different way. Like this one wouldn't be based off the metatext. Like metatext is a whole feature, a whole mechanic that I have. Whereas this would obviously not be metatext based. It's just, I like it because it reminds me of those features. But as a class, being able to like manipulate, manipulate reality or manipulate things. Kind of like also what you brought up, like Galaxy Quest, right? Like the idea that even just the smallest little manipulations can happen.
Yes, a little blip.
I think for me, this one would probably be... Because it's like if I don't look at it from the prism of metatext, it's either metatext, clairsentience, or like precognition, essentially. Like I'm trying to think of like where does what would in High Point, how do you factor in where this power comes from? Like if you're coming at it from a class, right? The idea that it's not just a singular person's ability, and this could potentially be something that's either learned or passed down or gifted or obtained. Like somehow this power exists in a multitude, not just not a shining example, right? Because that's just how I define class. Class means that there's a community of it. So how would I in High Point represent what this class can do, right? If it's not via the metatext, it would have to be like precognition. So some sort of seen into the future, like clairsentience, like the psionic, or some sort of precognition, or even time travel, being able to slip through time, right? Because those would be the opportunities. Because then you have to give them not only the ability to know that something needs to be altered, but then how to alter it, right? So that's where the difference is, right? Knowing something's going to happen versus being able to change the outcome.
Something about what actually happens there.
Yeah, that's the fascinating aspect of it. But I think I'm trying too hard. I think I just have to accept the fact that as written, this basically from a High Point point of view, this really is primarily discussing the concept of metatext, because I can't really get around it because it literally is all about writing. It's pages, it's text, it's ink, it's like realistically I can't get around that, so I will just have to knock off a point in terms of transitionability to High Point, because I have an entire mechanic that functions for this, and so this particular subclass will just have to take a knockoff for that, just because it's kind of one of those, it clashes with something I already have. So not a knockoff for how good it is, just a knockoff for I wouldn't be able to use it in High Point as is because it clashes with something that I already have. I saw it as a concept recognition of stories and seeing what makes a great story, that you shift reality to fit that story. Okay.
I like that.
That is a cool stuff. That's a cool way of looking at it. Yeah, I just think that with that, I think it would just be too much of a clash.
That makes sense.
So it'll just have to. And again, high points are not a value rating. It is more, and again, it is purely a rating of the likelihood, or how much I'm willing to put it into high point, or how much I want it in high point. So the 1 point away is just because, as much as I do like this, I just wouldn't be able to use it as it's on high point because it would directly clash with a feature or a mechanic that I already have.
Right.
But outside of that, I can really only see that. So it doesn't really need any changes, but in order for it to operate most effectively in high point, there would be a few things that we would have to alter. A couple of things that we had mentioned, but again, only things, it would be more like lore-based things and only small tweaks like that. I would probably, again, tweak words to build upon in order to make it fit better. Because again, for me and in high point, adding the Bardic Inspiration to a roll before you know the success is basically just deciding, like, I don't know, for me it just doesn't mechanically work that way in terms of it. There's no real benefit to that, and I would like more player agency in terms of when to use that, especially if it's so rare to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably change that. I may or may not add the 10th level thing. Like I said, I don't use subclasses, so if I was playing 5th edition, I'd probably add the 10th level somewhere in there, but because it's 2nd edition, I'd probably have other things. Plot twist, I think, is really good. The Muse of Inspiration, I think small, tiny little change could be beneficial. Writing prowess is just beautifully written, and set the scene is just awesome.
So good.
So I think I'm only going to take off the one additional point for some of the modifications I would have to make. So one thing that clashes with a mechanic I already have, and just some minor tweaks just to fit it make it the lore fit slightly better. But otherwise, I mean, this is absolutely a solid 8 out of 10.
Clean.
I think, yeah. I think
Clean,
if it
clean.
just had a few small word changes, it would have been a 9. But I think just for me comfortably to fit it in high point, it would have to just be modified a little bit. But there's no balancing issues. Everything fits. The lore works. It's straightforward. It reads really well. The naming structure is phenomenal. It actually, again, it starts and finishes the same way. Form fits function. Very beautifully done. Very well done. I am so excited to see the other ones. How many do you have in this book?
There are 7 that I have that were submitted to me individually.
This is their book, by the way, that we got. This is like the whole thing. There was just one of the subclasses in this entire book that we got from Pokeniner, and you have.
The only one that wasn't submitted individually was the Warlock subclass.
What do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Really?
14. We have 14 submissions just in this book alone. So we are one of 14 fully figured out.
Clean.
And not bad for a first submission for an 8 out of 10. That's actually
love it.
pretty damn good. And really, I mean, let's face it. I'll be honest. For all intents and purposes, like, realistically, it should have been a 9 out of 10. I'm kind of being pedantic, but I kind of have to start being that way because we've gotten such good content that, like, not everything can be an 8 and 9 and 10 out of 10. So I do have to start, like, getting a little bit more, like, not harsh, but I have to get more realistic with my structure of...
More specific. I see what you're saying.
Well, I have to be consistent, right? If I have to remember what I've taken points off for before and be consistent with those points. So if I change enough verbiage for my liking and for it to make sense in high point, I have to take a point off for that. If it clashes or if I can't use it, I have to take a point out. Like, there are some things I have to be consistent with. But I mean, realistically, this deserves to be a 9 out of 10 because of just how well and creative it is. But if I'm being honest, yeah, there's just as is, it wouldn't fit in high point, but that means nothing to. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that means nothing. It's just a fun thing that we do. But Pokeniner, thank you so much. That was phenomenal. We have 13 others from you that we have to do. I am so excited. Like, if any of them are written half as well as this, we are going to have so much fun. They are going to be such great reads. And I have a feeling that a lot of these are going to inspire so many more conversations because I feel like with this particular review, we did tangent, but not wide tangents, but our tangents were
It wasn't
better
wild.
focused. I think our
Yeah.
tangents were like very well focused. So that shows that these builds aren't so, because I feel like with some of the other builds, especially with like D&D Beyond that we've done, especially with their classes, we do tend to tangent a lot, but it's because they're kind of all over the place, right? So we're trying to grab all of these concepts
Trying to
and
figure
shove
out
them
what's
down.
yeah.
This is all so well packaged that we're just almost just commenting on the packaging instead of trying to figure out how the packaging works.
Yeah.
So that's just, I have to say that I am looking so much more into this, because it's also given us an insight into like the world that this came from, right? I mean, I know that there's not really a defined universe that these are meant for, but I'm hoping that as we see these, we start to see the type of world that Pokeniner is building, right? Like the influences and the gameplay style, right? Because this already can tell me a lot about the style of gameplay that's anticipated in this kind of, setting, right? Because this is obviously not how many classes have we gone over where it's like they only looked at this class build
From like
from
one
combat.
perspective. Yeah.
Like you look at it and you're like, okay, you literally thought everything of every combat situation. So what happens when you go into town? How do I play this character? Like literally you did everything combat related, but nothing anything else related. So yeah, I really like how this encourages the player to really think about what they need to be doing. And each power, although each power is unique, and plays well with the others, none of them, as unique as they are, none of them are overcomplicated. None of them are confusing. It's not going to be like, I'm going to be asking the DM all the time, like, wait, how does this work again? The DM's not going to be like, remind me what you're doing again.
I genuinely have a couple of like rule clarifications, but like they're easily explainable. They have a definitive answer. It's not like super depending on this or
exactly.
It's just, this is what it is.
No, and I like that because that makes it so much more approachable for both players and DMs to want to accept homebrew subclasses and things like that, right? Is if they get overcomplicated or if there's any hint of OP-ness or trying to bend or break the standard gameplay rules, most DMs aren't even willing to consider it. But with something like this, you can read through this once, and even if you don't quite wrap your head around everything, there's no red flags that go, I don't think I would try that. You read this and go, what's the worst that could happen? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the player's going to take this and demolish your gaming session. They might throw you a loop or two, but nothing about this reads, no, you can't play this, right?
Right.
It actually almost makes the DM be like, oh, you can do that? Well, maybe I'll try something different if you're going to do that, right? Like the idea of the message cantrip. Adding that power into the party could make the DM decide to split you up more. Because, well, you're going to need to use the power, aren't you?
I mean, hey.
Like, there's so many...
And they can introduce so many cool opportunities where most players would never interact with them.
Yeah. No, I think that's... I think it's a great build. I think it definitely deserves an 8 out of 10. And I cannot wait for the next one. So yeah, thank you so much for that. That was absolutely fantastic. Let's see. So, excited you'll love Shinobi. Yes, actually. So Shinobi I've actually brought up before because when I was just kind of scrolling through the book, Shinobi was the first one that caught my eye in wanting to ask you about artwork, because I was like, oh, this looks like some cool, like generic artwork. I wonder if the website produces it. And then I got to Shinobi and I'm like, wait a second, that was the first artwork I looked at. I'm like, that's kind of on point. Wait, where did this artwork come from? Is this just D&D? Like, I was really confused because I'm like, let me see. I was like, I was scrolling through and I'm like, oh, that's some cool, that's some cool artwork there. That's some cool things there. And then it was like, you got to this Shinobi. And then I'm like, wow, that's actually a really good picture for Shinobi. And I'm like, where did this artwork come from? So yeah, I definitely want to do it. Oh, actually, Pokeniner, we do have a question for you in terms of this. When you said that these photos were stock, like from Google and stuff. Now, when you decided to put these in the book, does the book or does Home Brewery do this like outliney thing where you give it the photo and just tell it what you want and it places it? Or did you do this fade out outline and then decide where to put it in the book? I know Kage was interested in the fade out.
Very much
and I'm
so.
just really curious, do you decide where the artwork goes or do you just give it artwork and the book does it? But yeah, 2 questions for you. How do you do the outline and how do you decide how to put the artwork in? His board. Oh yeah, that's my main problem with the classes that I'll fix now, only being combat oriented. I mean, his board, to be fair though, yours really is
That's what its purpose
oriented
is.
for your campaign, though. You got to remember, like, yours is much different of an approach. That's why we do yours in a showcase and not so much in a review, because yours is very campaign and setting specific. You have an entire setup, right? Your two main characters are the main character and their pet, played by players, but even gods are players, right? The whole setting is gods betting for and against the players and putting them through these challenges and these encounters. And even though it is combat heavy, it's meant to be combat heavy, because even though it's not a combat focused campaign, you're really supposed to stand out. Like, I think what Kage and I were saying in the last stream, the way that we started to put it was, your build is not about if you win the battle, it's how you win the battle.
Yes.
And that kind of gameplay is such a different approach, is why we do a showcase, because this is meant more for anybody to be able to pick up this and go play it in their DM's game. Whereas Godly Entertainment and Aberration, or I'm sorry, Heavenly Imp now, those aren't, right? Those aren't meant for just me or Kage, or even Pokeniner to go pick up and just run in a game. That's an entire setup designed for a specific use. So I wouldn't beat yourself up in terms of that build, because I think yours makes sense that way. Just because I don't think that your campaign, I think your campaign falls into that. And really, those powers also made what those characters' purpose was, right? Like, it really made the idea of what your campaign was all about. So yeah, I don't know if you did too much of that with your specific build, but again, we also haven't seen anything else that is more universally acceptable. So we'll have to definitely see from that point of view as well. But yeah, I like I said, it all depends on the approach. So let's see, back to Pokeniner. This was very much of a baby of the compendium, so the quality is a bit much compared to the others. No, so it had to fit. So he did have to physically edit those. There's a fade option, but only for what the art shows. Okay, so kind of like I was saying, probably just outlined it, faded it.
Okay.
Then they also said, but only for the art that shows. So they had to physically fit the edges, and then add the images to with a transparent. That's what we were talking about, the transparent background. So yeah, you fade the images, transparent background.
So
that onto the
I might
pages.
ask you
Interesting.
what tool you use for that, because I might want to find an easy way to start cropping some pictures of my own for some places like this, because that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, and then Hisbor says, "Want to create a sitting book that will let the player to pick it up and get into that play style, though." And that's really where something like this, like that's where we, Kage and I, want to get more into this homebrewery. So again, Pokeniner, thanks for submitting this.
Very much so.
It was great to like mess with it and everything. But definitely want to look more into this and see what we can do with High Point stuff. And Hisbor, definitely check out Homebrewery. I think we have one of the links in the Discord, but definitely check out Homebrewery if you're looking to make your own book, because this is phenomenal. This is amazing.
I absolutely love it. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been stealing some of Pokeniner's like templates, like the format and like how he used it, like the layout, and it's super easy to just kind of like plug and play different things. So if I do start working on putting a book together for us, like this is gonna help us like get everything in there in a pretty decent fashion. So
yeah, I'm really excited to play around with Homebrewery a little bit more and see if I can start putting some of the High Point mechanics and features and things that I've built into a readable format for everybody, so because it would just be kind of cool to have like a D&D discussions booklet for all the mechanics that I've ever talked about with High Point.
Yes. That would be the shit.
Pokeniner says it's actually a borrowed template for a book on Homebrewery, so this is just one of their many templates apparently.
Sharing is caring.
It is credited at the top.
Is it?
So there's Natural Crit Homebrewery version 3.1.2. Description.
I think he might mean like on the second page of the document where his thing is.
Homebrew review. Blah blah blah. Credits. Template lead design. There you are.
Clean.
Let me send.
Thank you so much. I did not know that. I'm gonna.
I'll just pop that into the admin chat real quick.
Perfect.
For you. Cool. So, and then that's actually really cool. Oh yeah, so front cover and then image covers, back covers. Okay, cool. Oh, I like that you actually even add this. Yeah, these are your favorite stuff. Make sure with your dungeon master if these are acceptable. Yeah, I like that you add that little note in too. That's awesome. Actually, part of the template is credit for the top in the credits page. Thumbs up. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. This is so cool. I love this idea. I'm so looking forward to doing these other classes. And just to look into homebrew. I think that was just such a cool little new thing to do. Oops, there we go. That's the right camera angle. What is up, everyone? Get the right camera angle.
Bringing it back.
Originally going to add magic items for every class.
That reminds me,
like you choose the subclass and then they come with a magic item,
or because it reminds me of that one that I don't know if it was his board that submitted it that was talking about having the deck. They just recently talked about taking the deck out and wasn't making it a central part of the class, but I did think that was an interesting idea to kind of center a class around. Like you think about the Warlock's Hexblade, they're basically centered around that.
Yeah.
That hex weapon. Granted, you can change it to whatever weapon you want, but I thought that was a very interesting idea, especially with a deck of what were they, tarot cards?
Yeah, and Pokeniner is saying that this would be like a class would have an exclusive attunable item.
Yes,
that's not bad.
That's very cool.
Anything to make it more personalized, I think, would be pretty awesome as well.
I was you his board, right on.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, that was. That was phenomenal. I am so excited for that. We have so many to go through. So that was one of 13. So trust me, we do have a couple of submissions from some other people coming up the pipe. I know we have. Let's see. So we just did Pokeniners. We have next week. You're not here, so I'm going to be soloing. So we're going to be talking about something that Kage had submitted to me a while back. It's a very small write-up for just a small magical item, but I want to use that kind of to do a homebrew review. But I'm also going to use that as a launching point to talk about a very similar item that I created in High Point that one of his characters actually uses. So it's kind of funny that he brought this idea to me, and I'm like, that already exists. But what will be kind of cool is since I'll be by myself, I'll probably just use that as a day to basically do a homebrew review, quick little one on that, and then talk about how I created the High Point version of a very similar item. Talk about my my creation process with that. It'll probably be a very short episode just because I don't do well by myself on homebrew review. So yeah, that'll probably be a launching point there. And then we have...
After that, we have one of his board's classes. So I don't know which one was technically submitted first, but I believe the one that we have slotted...
I wrote them in order of which ones should be
in
order. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they aren't technically in chronology. He wanted them in opposite order.
Got you. So I set it up for us. What channel do I post that in? It was schedules. That's right. So our upcoming homebrew after the finger guns is going to be the Warlock subclass of the Monarch. Now, this one, here's the deal. I was putting this together. I saw the photo, the image that he used for this. Beautiful. And here's the deal. I just watched Solo Leveling. That's what this whole subclass is based upon. It's an anime called I cannot wait.
All right.
I cannot. It's all right. We're all right. Let's go.
All right. So yeah. That's going to be coming up on the 20th. So next week, no Kage. So I'll just be by myself doing a quick one and doing some High Point variation discussions on that. Then we'll be. Wait, is that his boards or is that Drab's?
Oh,
did I have that wrong? Is it Drab? Because it should be Drabs has the Warlog. Then we have his board, right?
Oh, yes. That was not his board. That was
okay. So yeah, so that's what
that
it will
was
be.
Drabs.
Yeah, so next week no Kage. Week after that on the 20th we have Drabs with the Warlock subclass Shadow Monarch, and then on the 27th we have his board. We will be doing a re-review. We will start with Godly Entertainment. So we're going to do a quick re-review. We'll do like a overview. We'll go over all the new stuff. We may spend the whole time talking about it. Depends on how much we have to adjust for, what's been changed. I don't know if it's going to be a quick review or not. If it's a quick review on Godly Entertainment, we'll also throw on the new version of Heavenly Imp. However, if Godly Entertainment takes us too long, then Imp will be pushed off. And then starting in June, We do have a couple others. We're trying to only keep a schedule out 3 or 4 weeks at a time so we can tentatively be able to get new submissions in and everything in case we have new people. But if nothing changes, if we don't get any new submissions from new people and new followers, starting in June, on the 3rd, Pokeniner with the Roguish Archetype Hustler. Then on the 10th, we will do Drabs again with the Wizard Subclass Wizard's Necromancy School of Tradition. And then on the 17th, again, back to Hisbor to finish off the Heavenly Imp if we didn't get to it. So we will be having plenty. And then there's still like 13 weeks after that.
And then we got Pokeniner.
We got homebrew review for days, y'all. Homebrew review ain't going nowhere.
Let's go.
And then this Friday, we are going to finally finish. We are hands down going to finish the complete Psionics Handbook. We are going to finish all of the rest of the sciences, devotions, and disciplines. Once we do all of that, then we're going to finally be able to do a high point build of a Psionicist. You guys can get a fresh look at what that looks like for high point. And then we have so many other topics to talk about. It's been a couple weeks since I've actually looked at these, but we have ritual casting, which we have.
That's
we have
right.
Ritual casting coming up as a topic to talk about. We have. I actually think after the Psionics, though, the next official topic will be the one that was submitted by Cosmic a while back, which is the multi-classing topic.
That's
so
right.
We're
That's
do
right.
Another deeper discussions on the history of multi-classing with a special focus on dual classing versus tri-classing.
Okay.
And the history of tri-classing and whether or not it is actually used, or if there is any benefit to using it these days. We have another topic idea of actually diving into the meta text. I have a whole topic idea I want to do about basically what is a class, or what are classes. Like, what are classes? What are they meant to mean? What do they represent? What are they to the players? What are they to the game, the campaign, blah, blah, blah. We have a whole topic of that. We have an entire topic on Simulacrum, the history of Simulacrum, and how it's been used.
Nice.
And yeah, that's just a small taste of the topics that we have coming in the next couple weeks. So we have no shortage of topics, but we do want to know what you guys think. We want to know what topics you want to hear us talk about on Deeper Discussions, and we want more homebrew review from you guys. So if you liked what you saw here today and you missed anything, or you want to see any of our previous live streams, you can check that out on our YouTube channel where we have all of our VODs. I will post that link in the chat right now. If you want to submit anything to us for homebrew review, if you want to submit a topic for us for Deeper Discussions, or if you just want to chat with us in the community, you can join our Discord. Also, link in the chat right now. That is going to be us for the rest of tonight. You guys have been fantastic. I want to thank everybody in chat. Hisbor, Pokeniner, you guys have been great. Thank you so much for keeping us company. I do think that was everybody here today. I don't think we got a chance to see Cosmic or Inventorology, but maybe we'll see them next week. That's all right. I hope you guys had a fantastic week or a weekend. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend.
Right.
I hope you have a good week ahead of you. But that is going to be us for the rest of the night. I will be back. Are you going to be here on this Friday?
I will be here Friday.
All right. We will be back on Friday to finish up Psionics. Are you going to be remote, or are you going to be in
I
studio?
should be here live on Friday.
All right. So no more. Yeah. So at least we won't have to do that. Drabs, there you are. What up? How you doing?
Drabs, great
Good to
show.
see ya.
Hey, high five.
I'm glad you're here. So I'm glad you got to hear when your topic will be coming up. I'm glad that you got to hear. Yeah, on the 20th, your Warlock subclass will be talked about. So yeah, glad you were here. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a good week ahead of you. We will be back on Friday at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time for Deeper Discussions, where we'll continue Psionics Handbook. And I may be back on Wednesday for some Hitman gameplay if you guys are interested in chilling out with me off stream and just casually hanging out while I game and make a fool of myself. If you guys are down for that, join me on Wednesday. Otherwise, that's going to be us. You guys have been fantastic. Cheers.
Deuces, my friends.